let us give you an experience.
At the Pokémon Center, EUIC London.
Luminosity Gaming. We have the champs looking like the champs again.
My name is Overlord and I am from North America.
Curios from Fairfax, Virginia.
Slashcan from Minnesota in the US. I think my starter Pokemon in any game would be Bulbasaur.
I started with Piplup, just stuck with it. I think I'm just a fan of penguins in general.
I just like the vibe about Lotad. He just chills all day.
I had always played Pokemon as a kid. I played like almost every game in every generation, even the new games I get. So when Pokémon UNITE came out, I instantly fell in love with it.
I kind of just started playing a bunch of grassroots tourneys. People are kind of like, yo, you're good at this game. Maybe you should, try to get on a better team.
Overlord and Slashcan, those are like my first real close friends in this game.
I eventually met my former teammates Curious and Slash before the first UCS season started. And we really liked our team chemistry, so we stuck together and yeah, the rest is history.
There was this undefeated team called TTV.
TTV is like winning every single tournament.
They were definitely like, I guess, the bar of what you have to reach if you want to be the best.
My old team, we played them in like a community tournament and then we were able to like barely win. We were just like yelling and screaming after we won that tournament.
I actually 3-0'd them in a tournament and I was like, I think I'm gonna be really good at this game.
The biggest moment for me in particular was winning Worlds the second time. The first time it was kind of, we didn't really know if like we could do it, I guess. Second year was about mainly proving to the world that we were still the best. Last season, around AOS Cup time, I lost my previous team and we didn't do as good as we thought. I ended up making a new team to try to compete that year. Unfortunately, it didn't go as well as I expected it, but it was definitely a good learning experience.
One of the toughest things, like going to Hawaii and then also seeing, one of my closest friends, Overlord, have an unfortunate loss. It kind of like really made me want to get a win with him on my team and be able to, see him like lift up the trophy again.
What keeps me coming back is just these feelings of being able to play on stage in front of a crowd, being able to play and perform at like the big moments when it really matters. It's definitely a special feeling. This season, there's a lot more to play for. So our strategy going into the finals was to find any holes and the opponent's draft.
They had to play off their comfort Pokemon.
We are very flexible. We're able to pull out any Pokemon and have good mastery over them. And we're able to kind of, have a good draft no matter what.
In game 1, being able to win on the first pick side was really good. We felt really excited because that was a big win.
We had a very strong plan for game 2. We drafted a comp that was very good at ripping the Rayquaza in like 2 seconds.
They look for the rip right away, and they take it immediately.
Oh man, just ripping the cloth off the dinner table.
I really love the crowd, even if it was, against us, it fills the room with energy. The players are playing better.
Luminosity Gaming taking down every member of 2Z Esports.
It was a big win for the team. Definitely very emotional.
A lot going through my head, but I think it's like, I'm gonna have to kind of breathe and take it in. I didn't have like the most faith in myself coming back into this tournament. Being able to, I think, put on a strong performance for myself, really confidence booster.
There's definitely a bunch of relief because I think there was a lot of pressure on our team in particular to perform. because it was kind of like a redemption year.
We do have a lot of haters, and so this is like the start of the perfect season we wanted. We want to win LAIC, ACL, AOS Cup, and Worlds. Being able to win Worlds 3 times would be huge.
And then being able to show that our team produces the best Pokemon Unite and nobody else can.
Going up the previous World Champions funnel will definitely be a tough challenge, and I think that's where we'll see if we've got what it takes to win Worlds.
Your LAIC champions!
Yeah, I think we have what it takes.
For the first stop of the 2025 ICs, we went to Sao Paulo, Brazil for the Latin America International Championships. Over 550 trainers competed in the video game across the juniors, seniors, and masters division. This was the big international showcase for the Regulation H rule set. No Paradox Pokemon, no Legendaries, no Restricteds. Just back to the basics of the Scarlet and Violet Pokédexes. With so many possibilities, trainers needed to be prepared for all sorts of team archetypes and unique Pokemon choices, and it was going to be the most experienced trainers finding the wins. The Masters Division Top Cut was one of the most stacked fields we've ever seen. 5 international champions, 2 of which were the only 2 players to ever have 2 IC wins, 1 Players' Cup champion, and a ton of regional champions. It was almost fate for the 2 double IC champs to face each other in the finals, or for LAIC to finally be won by a Latin American player. But in the end, it was Marco Hamantha Caladura Silva versus Victor Medina in the grand finals. A classic sun versus rain, with either Marco making history as the first 3 times IC champ in Masters, or Victor finally getting a win after coming so close so many times before. Championship Sunday was Marco's day. In a decisive 2-0, Marco Silva made history as not just the first 3 times IC champ, but becoming the first to defend an IC title.
Heavy is the crown as Marco Silva makes history as the first 3-time international champion in the Masters Division.
In the Seniors Division, Marco's little brother Pietro Silva also won LAIC, adding another IC champion trophy to his cabinet.
Pietro Nihal Caladura Silva will be your international champion.
In the Juniors Division, Ismail Hoki finally won his first IC.
We've got Ursaluna in the trick room, fully ready to pick up the KO, and we have it, Ismail Hoki!
Now we look forward to the Europe International Championships in February, so make sure to follow along and catch all the action at Pokemon.com/broadcasts.
Hey trainers, I'm Freya Pierce, and I'm here to recap the 2025 Latin America International Championships for the Pokemon trading card game. LAIC 2025 was the last major tournament of the Stellar Crown format. Players knew what to expect with the likes of Raging Bolt, Regidrago, Lugia, and Terrapagos filling the tables. Brazil's Henry Cuninari faced Sergio Lopez from the US in a Charizard EX mirror match for the Junior Championships. Henry took a swift 2-0 victory, with a little help from Fortin to surprise evolve Dusknoir and Curse Blast his way to victory.
And Henry Cuninari will close out game number 2 and becomes your LAIC champion.
In the Senior Division, Gabriel Fernandez met Justin Templar in another Brazil-US face-off. A masterful display from each player earned them 1 game apiece. After a Dusknoir misplay in Game 3, Gabriel was able to recover though and take a second title for the home crowd.
And that's it! He extends the hand, back-to-back champions. Gabriel Fernandez does that and repeats his title.
In the Masters Finals, 2 titans of the game, Australia's Brent Tonneson and Miloslav Pozleny from Czechia, played the mirror match with Regidrago V-Star. In Game 1, Miloslav started strong with a very early Boss's Orders KO on Brent's Regidrago V-Star, initiating a prize race in which Miloslav led all the way into Game 2. Game 2 ended as quickly as it started, with a lone Curium Star from Miloslav allowing Brent a quick KO on his second turn, leaving one last game to decide our LAIC champion. Following their first match's example, Miloslav KO'd Brent's only Regidrago V and never missed a beat, taking 6 prizes in 3 turns to win his first ever international title.
And Brent doesn't think he can do it, extends the hand, and Miloslav Pozletny becomes the Latin American international champion.
That was it for the first international of the 2025 season. There's still plenty of events to go, prizes to be won, and invitations to be earned to the 2025 World Championships. So make sure to go to Pokemon.com/compete to find out how you can take part and aim to be the very best like no one ever was.
It's time for a quick recap of the Latin America International Championships 2025. I'm Tomahawk UK, and I was in Sao Paulo when Mato Galde took Brazil by storm against many of the best Pokemon Go players in the world. famous for its electric atmosphere, LAIC was a showcase of some of the best talent, support, and sportsmanship that Pokémon GO has to offer. Dominating the scene were meta staples, including Clodsire, Azumarill, and Shadow for Alligator. However, LAIC was also ripe for spice, as Primeape, Jumpluff, and even Shadow Alolan Marowak found their way into trophy placements. Championship Sunday kicked off with a face-off between friends, which saw fan favourite Marto Galde take a quick victory over his teammate Richie1409. Richie dropped into the losers finals for a sensational set of 5 against local hero 12 Vitorello. In fascinating fashion, Vitorello and his Galarian Moltres recovered from a 2-game deficit to secure his place in the LAIC Grand Finals. Vitorello went on to stun the crowd as he steamrolled his way through the first 3 games against Marto Galde, resetting the bracket and leaving everything to play for. In one of the most closely fought finals the game has ever seen, Marto Galde and Vitorello took the series to a final game of 5. An immensely climactic charge attack priority event saw Azumarill and Galarian Moltres exchange heavy blows, with Marto Galde coming out victorious.
Marto Galde is your 2025 Latin America International Champion! Give it up for the Tercero del Mundo!
Off the back of his 3rd place finish at the 2024 World Championships, his 1st place finish at the 2025 Lima Special Event, Marto Galde sealed his name as a legend of the game, as he became the 2025 Latin America International Champion. Make sure to keep up with all of the incredible action and Pokemon champions this season at Pokemon.com/compete.
and heroes among us, going for the ultimate goal. We came from all over, every one of us with a different story. Competition unites us. Now it's time to claim your glory.
We share the same vision, we have the same mission, so let the games begin. Try with some far to play, gonna give all it takes, cause we came to win.
Let's go! Come on!
We came to win, we came.
And Emmy Weedle is gonna 3-0 sweep.
Fusion shows up, Fusion takes the raid, Fusion wins.
Torn Reklev, the greatest player of the modern era.
Nils Dunlop is your European International Champion.
Hey Pokemon competitive fans, welcome. This is the EUIC Preview Show where we're getting a little taste of all the action to come next week in the UK Incredible International Championship. We have 4 different games to get through, but before I get too far into it, I'm your host Rachel, aka Seltzer. Joining me is Adam Skarzig Watson.
What's up, everybody?
Happy Valentine's Day, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day to you and to everyone at home. We've got some strong emotions in the air, certainly, and one of my favorites is the competitive spirit. Going to EUIC, not just the stakes and the competition and the metagames to break down for this show, but also what our competitors are going to be receiving. This is a special, exclusive EUIC competitor kit. Let's take a look, folks.
So much on the line here. If you're going to compete, you're grabbing one of these, but Skarzig, it gets better and better the better you perform at the tournaments, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I love the Wellspring Ogerpon spread they have for this competitor kit. I want that hat for sure. And if you make it to top 8, you're getting an even more exclusive prize. Look at this beautiful play mat. I know the competitors are really going to be excited for this new, this new marker of their accomplishment, especially for such a massive tournament. I think one of the biggest of all time so far.
Yeah, we've talked to some of the experts that'll be heading out to cover it. They're talking about how tough this competition is going to be, which makes it all the more meaningful if you're able to secure one of our Champions Prize playmats. Not a lot of these going out, just to the winners of each of our titles in each of our divisions, and I think it's deservedly gorgeous as well.
Absolutely stunning. Even if I won't have a chance to get one for myself, sometimes even just seeing it is going to be a pleasure. So good luck and congratulations ahead of time to anybody who's able to take one of those magnificent mats home.
Well, and in the first game we're covering, they're giving out 5 because it is a team game. We're going to get into Pokemon UNITE, and there's no one better to bring out and talk us through it than Zoinks. Zoinks, come on out. How you doing, buddy? Are you excited?
Yeah, Pokemon UNITE always brings the hype, certainly, and I am looking forward to it. Probably not as much as you, however, but I did want to get your initial thoughts about the season so far. What's going to be at stake for these players, Zoinks?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on the line. Sorry, everybody, I think my audio's back and good to go. But in terms of what's on the line, we got $50,000 worth of prize pool. That's first and foremost. But of course, championship points are going to be awarded. But this was a big deal last year, and it stays the same this year. EUIC will be the first tournament to qualify a team for the World Championships later this year. It's a huge, mid-season tournament where some teams actually played in online qualifiers to get travel awards to this location. Other teams are just making the trip out and signing up to compete, but all for that same prize, $50,000, and then of course a trip to Worlds.
It's wild to think that teams are already starting to lock that in at this event, and there's a lot of teams that are really making a great shot for it. You've got some teams to keep an eye on for. The first one up, you got Nouns for us.
Yeah, I mean, no strangers to London at this point. Nouns Esports, they have been around the bend at this tournament and others that were also hosted at the same place. I mean, they really made a big splash in the first year of Pokemon United 2022. Our first World Championships, making it all the way to that silver medal spot, as well as doing incredible in last year's EUIC, as well as Worlds, and doing a very solid performance at this year's LAIC, making it into the top 8. So already having a great season. Locally, they have been almost dominant in every single monthly tournament as well, where the only exception being this last monthly tournament where they ended up at, a second place finish, which I really don't think you get too upset about that either.
Yeah, a team that can have such consistency, I think, is really big in the Pokemon Unite scene. We've seen teams kind of rise and fall, newcomers make big names for themselves, but having a good legacy with the game and good consistency seems to be the mark of Nouns Esports for now.
100%. Very minimal roster changes to this team, but they are going into it with a slightly new look. They're going to have Ender joining the team in support. He's played 1 monthly so far. Desu kind of role swapping over to that attacker role. So some exciting stuff on the horizon for Nouns Esports. And yeah, I think a lot of really interesting looks. If I'm to make an early call around this team, I think it's a lot of people's tournament favorite, but also this metagame feels lined up really well for Nouns Esports.
Really good point there. And it's great because we actually had a chance to catch up with one of the Nouns Esports players, Desu. He gave us an interview so we can get some of his thoughts about the tournament and the longevity of the Nouns Esports roster. Let's take a look, folks. Hello, everyone. We are here with Desu from Nouns Esports. Now, Desu, you are just such a long-time player. You've been competing since the very beginning of the Pokemon Unite series. You've appeared at almost every major event, including a second-place finish at Worlds in 2022. What is it about Unite that continues to inspire you as a player?
It's such a fun game, right? So it's 10 minutes of full action everywhere. I think that's the most lovely part of this game, and that's why I love it so much. If you compare it to any other game, there's no other game that has as much action as Unite since the very first second. So I think that's the biggest reason. Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, there's so much action. There's so many different ways to play. The team aspect is so exciting. Since the very beginning, you have been willing to step into so many different roles and to innovate in a lot of them. What role are you going to be playing for your team next week?
Well, I'm mostly playing the bot lane, the attacker role, but you could maybe see me in other laners, depending on what is required. I'm always flexible, let's say.
Okay, I do like that answer, just trying to adapt to what the other teams are doing, what maybe shakeups in the meta might be occurring, and I think that your history as a player has really allowed you to flex into those slots as needed, especially since, as our viewers at home will know, you've been with Nouns Esports for so long, right? You've been with the same team forever, and what is it about this organization, this roster, that seems to keep you all together and competing?
Well, I will say it's part of friendship, part of feeling it, part of the big support we have behind our org, and I'm still super grateful that they choose us to be the representatives of my team. But yeah, I think it's a mix of that, a mix of friendship and confidence from our squad into our team. I would say, yeah.
I liked when you asked, Adam, your face just lit up, Adesu. You clearly get so much joy from your team, and that's so wonderful. I love to see that. And especially when you're facing tough challenges ahead, it must really bring you guys together. And obviously, you've really proven that you can overcome. But what are some of the challenges that you as a team face heading up for a tournament like this?
Oh, yeah. So I never won a LAN before, never won a presential tournament. The closest I was a second place in 2022 in World Championship and 2023 in the EUIC. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be this close to get it. So maybe this time, how do we deal with that? We just want to prepare as much as possible and try our best. If we are lucky and everything is as well like connecting at that time, we can make it, because we were always so close, and it's just a little, right? It's just a little.
Just a little further.
Just
a little further.
Just a small push to maybe try to break that curse and get a big win for the team at a LAN. I completely understand it. You're playing with these long-term teammates of yours, the friends of yours, to bring it all home. But so far in your career, what would you consider right now to be your biggest accomplishment?
Oh yeah, I will remember every time. In 2022, we were in losers bracket and against T2. We were losing 0-1 against them, and I made a Dragonite play that made us come back. Like right when we were about to lose and drop the tournament, we made a super good comeback there with Dragonite, and we secure and we put the score in 1-1. And that was the beginning of our losers bracket run, and I will remember every day in my life, let's say. I gave my team the energy they were like lacking at that moment, and they were like super energetic after that moment. So yeah, I treasure that so much.
One play to completely shift the meta of an entire bracket. I know that there's a lot of fans at home reliving that nostalgia right along with you, or maybe going to revisit that awesome clip from the past. Really great answer. Thank you.
Well, you've talked to us about how Nouns has come so close so many times to maybe cinching that win at LAN. This is another opportunity where, is that perhaps your goal? Or when you're looking forward to an event like this, are you just hoping for more moments like your incredible Dragonite meta-changing play? Or do you just want to spend time with friends? What are you most looking forward to at EUIC?
To be fair, this time we are looking for trying to win the tournament more than any other tournament I think we've been before. We'll be able to do it, hopefully. I really want to win a LAN, let's say. But yeah, I am always looking for hanging out with everybody, all our fans, or all our friends I made around the way. It was a long way, and I made so many friends as well, and I enjoy a lot to be with them. And I love the events. I love to watch other games as well. So I love to watch VGC and TCG as well. So I enjoy a lot. Every Pokemon event, to be fair.
All the other games I hear love to watch Unite as well, so it's a great community overall at these.
Yeah, there's so much of EUIC that everybody can enjoy. Whether you're super familiar with Unite, the crowd hype, that's universal, baby, definitely. And when it comes to competing in Unite itself, not just outside of EUIC, but just competing in a tournament like this, what is your favorite aspect of that organized play?
Oh, to be fair, as a team game, it's always hard to have good synergy with your teammates. And it takes a while. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of attempts just to know what are the strengths of your teammates, what are their weaknesses, to have fun with them, like to make a strategy with them. It takes a lot of time. And some people are not aware of this. That it's a thing of trying and repeat until you have success. And I think I really like it, to be fair. This kind of discovering my teammates during the way and changing each other and doing stuff together, but knowing that they are the way I know them, let's say. Yeah, I think that's what I like it the most from the competitive scene.
Yeah, there might be a few people in the audience that might not be picking up what you're putting down, but I certainly am Adesu. This isn't just about trying to get a big win for your team. It's about seeing in real time the payoffs of all of your practice and training and the confidence you have in your teammates, knowing that they've got your back when these clutch moments need to come through. I'm really rooting for your team now, my friend.
I thank you so much.
Well, Pokemon since day one has taught us the importance of bonds, and never in any other game do you get to see them as much as in Unite, when you've developed these incredible bonds with your teammates, and it sounds like you really enjoy testing them and watching them strengthen and grow. I think I'm extra partial to team games for this reason. I share your hype, Adesu. And I share your hype for Pokemon in general. I've been scoping out your back. I've been trying to figure out if I could figure out the answer to this question before I asked it, but what's your favorite Pokemon overall?
Oh. It's Sylveon.
Yeah.
It's definitely Sylveon.
Very good choice.
You will see me with this Blasi like in some of the tournaments. It's my favorite one, let's say.
What was the moment you fell in love with Sylveon?
To be fair, it was in Unite when they released the character and nobody was playing it, and I was one of the few that gave this Pokemon a try, and it gave me some victories during 2022. And in World Championship, this Pokemon made me win the win and into the top 8 as well. So I fell in love with him at the moment, and now it's my signature, let's say.
The best trainers win with their favorites. I love to see it, Adesu. And I'm wishing you and your team so much luck heading into EUIC. It's been wonderful getting to talk to you, and I look forward to watching you compete, and I hope you have a great time with your community, your team, and your friends. So thank you so much for coming on to talk to us. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
It is such a treat to get to talk to these players. What a charming guy. I feel like we could have just sat and chatted with Adesu like all afternoon, but Zoinks, you get to hang out with these guys all the time.
Oh, it's the best. Any chance I get to hang out with Adesu and the crew at Nouns Esports, it's my favorite. It's so funny whenever they mention the plushies they bring. Nouns Esports is infamous for not only having a lot of plushies on stage with them during games, but they've also developed a reputation for, at least during the match, maybe trying to sneak over and grab the plushie from their competitors on the other side of the stage and adding it to theirs, and of course returning it after the match. But you always see a few extra plushies on Nouns Esports' side because of that.
I like the mascot wars that are starting to come in.
Yeah, you put the plushies on the line, and that's when you know things are getting real.
But that was Nouns. We have so many more teams to get through. Zoinks, who else have you got for us?
Yeah, a couple more teams from Europe I wanted to mention because it's not just Nouns Esports. It is going to be Gen 5, another incredible roster made up of 5 players hailing from France. So a complete one nationality team, but they are incredibly strong. Actually, a former member of Nouns Esports, Sarayu, has just joined this roster after Nouns' recent roster changes, and essentially, it worked in this recent month. Gen 5 finally able to dethrone Nouns Esports in the grand final of our most recent tournament. So a team with a lot of momentum behind them, and obviously a long list of success. A couple of these players at EUIC in previous years have had a championship here on this stage. So definitely poised for a fantastic tournament here.
Yeah, there's a lot of history just with the venue itself now that Unite has really come into its own and brings that hype. And I'm hoping to see another team join that sort of echelon of teams that made their start, their big debut, their big name at this event.
Yeah. One more note on Gen 5 before we bounce to the next team. If you are looking to watch a team that plays just absolute hyper carry Pokemon, a lot of resources, and just one or two players that just try to dominate a match, Gen 5 is going to be that team. The Zoroark or Absol or potentially even sometimes like a Chandelure or something, but likely these epic speedsters that are just incredibly fun to watch. Really high octane players there on Gen 5. So roster to look out for there. One more EU roster that I wanted to mention, though, is going to be Komai Esports. So Komai Esports has had a bit of a turbulent season, some good finishes, some not so great. However, in the most recent tournament, they did finish in 3rd place. This is a roster with a lot of question marks. They are I feel like a team trope shows up like this in every tournament, but a lot of seasoned veterans in Gecko, Kami, and Zante, and some fresh faces to the Unite Championship Series scene with Leorio joining this roster and things like that. They are... I guess the question mark is how well are these, young players who are incredibly talented going to handle the stage nerves and things like that. But if that's a question, I can't think of two better players to join them than Gecko, Kami, and Zante. They are incredibly well mental players, very good at staying focused in a match, but also making sure that they keep their team all on the same page. So this is going to be a really, really cool roster to see play in the group stage. And of course, if they make it into day 2.
That's an interesting angle as well. Players that are not as well seasoned but have a lot of potential, kind of being mentored by these veterans, and now they get the perfect stage to shine, a perfect storyline to follow.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we want to move away from some of the EU teams, we gotta mention our last year's champions of this tournament. They were formerly known as Fusion, but now are playing under the name Peru Unite. It's the same roster of 5 players, though. So if you became a fan of them at last year's AOS Cup, feel free to jump aboard on this new team name. They are incredibly strong. One of the highest historic win rates of any team in Unite Championship Series history. And I'm talking year after year. Last year, it was a ridiculous performance where they were able to win the AOS Cup and make their way to Worlds. And then at that World Championship that happened in Honolulu, they ended up in 4th place. The best performing Western team to actually compete at this event. A really, really fun squad to watch. They are one of those hyper flexible teams. You're going to start to notice a trend. A lot of the top teams end up being these extremely flexible teams in draft, even willing to kind of role swap between players or even play Pokemon that are not traditionally played on those parts of the battlefield. So Peru Unite, definitely a roster to look out for that. A really, really exciting team.
Yeah, I can't believe they took time off being a boy band and international celebrities. They look so cool. And they look so cool in game too.
Yeah, how can you not get hype? I'm glad to see that their sort of angle on the metagame isn't just skill, but innovation. Hopefully many more of the teams kind of follow suit.
Yeah, about the boy band, I mean, you pose that many times with a trophy, you just get good at it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Very good at it, you can tell.
I really feel like they lean into that identity really well, but they are an awesome team. Another team that I want to talk about is a really, really exciting squad. It's going to be their first international competition of the year, is Orange Juicers. You're still going to see Fusion on your screen because they did compete against them at the World Championships quite a bit. But Orange Juicers, one of our North American teams, a fantastic team. They did not get the chance to play at LAIC. However, in the monthly tournaments, they have won one. NA is tumultuous as ever. We've had a different champion every single month except for the last 2, which we've won by the same team. But Orange Juicers, holder of one of those titles, and just has a lot of great players. Really made a name for themselves when they won the North American Regional Championships last year at NAIC, the best performing NA team, and the only North American team to make it out of the group stage at the World Championships and into day 2. So definitely flying the flag for North America in that World Championships conversation, and I think they're looking to do the same here at EUIC.
Yeah, a long-term team with a lot of potential, carrying the torch, and hopefully, if you aren't rooting for the boy band, you've got to root for the hometown heroes, perhaps.
Yeah, you have a lot of good company in chat. They've got some fun chants.
Oh yeah, a lot of pulp up, a lot of fun Orange Juicers, and a team name. I just want to say how remarkable it is that I, as a caster, enjoy them when one half of the battlefield is the orange team, and I have a, I have a strong feeling that that's a lot lot of where that team name comes from, just to slight us casters. But it's okay. I still love this team, and they really represent North America well.
Yeah, you can't have a team game like this without a little bit of superstition, and hopefully they'll continue to be blessed by the orange side.
Exactly. Well, final team we want to watch is definitely, I think, most people's favorite to win the tournament is going to be Luminosity Gaming. They really need no introduction if you've even watched a single highlight clip of Pokemon UNITE at any moment. They have won the World Championships twice in 2022 and in 2023. They have an incredible track record, obviously, and this season, they are no stranger to victors either. They won the LAIC Championship and 2 of the monthly competitions online in North America, and notably, they are the last 2 that happened. So momentum definitely in favor of Luminosity Gaming. We talked a lot about the flexibility that strengthens teams. Luminosity Gaming might be the most shining example of that in all of Western Pokemon Unite. We saw in the pre-show a little bit of interviews from them, but Curios, normally the attacker player on this team, very willing to play a lot of melee or all-rounder style Pokemon. The support player Otter, very willing to slot into that attacker position, just more utility-based. A lot of fancy words to say that this team can play absolutely anything, and they are willing to if they think it will get them the win.
Yeah, Luminosity rose to prominence and continues to hold that spot. I think that if you love to be a fan of such a dominant team, maybe you don't like the underdogs, you want to see the game played at its highest level and clean play, Luminosity is going to be for you, viewer.
Yeah, and there's lots of places to watch Luminosity play coming up, I believe. Are we accurate in that, Zoe?
That is true. They will be competing at EUIC in just a few short weeks after. They will be competing at the Asia Champions League. That was a big prize of winning LAIC. They got a travel award to go play in Japan. So a really cool combination of the Unite Championship Series and the Asia Champions League. And I believe there is more to be announced with that just coming soon. So tune in. Make sure to follow at Unite Esports on any social media if you want to keep updated on that.
Fantastic.
And alongside that collaboration, we can also look at the wider lens of the competition for Unite as we look at our UCS schedule.
Yeah, we're going to need a wider lens, Adam. There's a lot in this schedule. With the inclusion of LAIC into our season schedule, we've lengthened the schedule quite a bit. It's actually wild to think that in seasons previous, February, the month we're in now, would be the start of our season. But now we've already had tournaments on tournaments going in this season number 4 for Unite Championship Series. But AOS Cup, definitely the big midway point that's going to be happening not this weekend, but next.
And we've got some little extra special items for everyone who does tune in and support Unite Esports by watching the live broadcast, I believe.
Yeah, we do have Twitch drops for our viewers. If you tune in and watch, you can get these 200 item enhancers. You know, take a little bit of the edge off and cope with some of your bad teammates when you're playing in solo queue and dreaming to be part of the big leagues sometime down the road.
I need to level up some items. I'll be watching. I'll see you all in chat.
That's all you need. It's just that little push you're going to need to win your next game is using these item enhancers, certainly. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Nice boon to newer returning players, too. If you know, a few new items have been added to the game over the past year, so if you're just grabbing those now, 200 item enhancers can help you along the way.
The meta has shifted. Yeah, that's something to reckon with. And in addition to that, if you're hoping to tune in, you want to watch the broadcast, but you'd like to watch in Spanish or Portuguese, we have a number of co-streamers who will be bringing you the action in their home languages. So you can check out right there on screen. Make sure you follow them so when they pop up and are immediately available on your Twitch options list as they go live.
Yeah, have those streams opened up in multiple tabs. That way when something hype goes down, you can see the explosion of action in 4 different chats all at once.
And I know those 3 co-streamers. I've gotten the chance to meet them all in person. You're going to want to see their reactions. They are energy incarnate between those 3. So fun to watch. So absolutely fantastic that we have those co-streamers aboard for the show.
Yeah, great bonus for the community to watch the games alongside some of their favorite personalities, see the hype from EUIC and our production. And speaking of the Unite community, I do have a couple questions here for you, Zoinks, coming from social media. I've got the first one here from BuzzerBob TV. Which Pokemon do you think would be a sleeper pick and surprise everyone with a good showing at EUIC this year?
Okay, well, first off, shout out to BuzzerBob, absolutely GOAT. But in terms of a sleeper pick Pokemon to choose, I actually have been getting the feeling recently, and I have absolutely nothing to back this with, which is why I'm going to put it in the sleeper category. We saw it a little bit at the World Championship Series, but it's been quiet ever since. I think Zeraora might have a bit of a comeback. It's a speedster with a decent amount of self-sustain, which feels like it could be solid in this metagame right now. And there's just something about playing in those in-person environments that puts a hyper carry with a support that just has full attention on that carry, and Zeraora and Comfey are kind of a match made in heaven in that variety. So I'm going to say Zeraora.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Unite audience, and I'm like, how could you take it up to the next level? Yeah, some trickery afoot with Zeraora would be so exciting in person. We have another question from socials. We got @Ketchum09S. Any special Unite pick we should look out for once again, just like Mamoswine?
Okay, so the Mamoswine is referencing one of my Pokemon to succeed from Worlds this year, and I had chosen Mamoswine, and it ended up being my best prediction to ever exist, which is fantastic. You only get one of those with a lot of wrong predictions, but when lightning strikes, looks like Ketchum wants me to allow it to strike twice. I think a meta-defining Pokemon in this tournament, it might be a little bit off the radar, not exactly, but it did receive some recent bonus changes, and with a lot of the defenders and more tanky Pokemon on the decline in terms of popularity, I think Ho-Oh might be a defining Pokemon at this tournament. It has never really seen a ton of play, but with the changes and just with the way the playstyle of Unite is playing out, I think Ho-Oh might be a defining Pokemon of EUIC.
Very, very great analysis, Zoinks. We've got a handful of teams to look out for, and now some of the important Pokemon that they might be working into their strategies as well for our viewers to keep an eye out for as well. Any final thoughts we can get from you before you return for the end of show panel?
Make sure everybody's tuned in. We're going to be early in the morning on Sunday for Grand Finals and in EU time. That might be tough for some of the people in other time zones, but EUIC is always one of the best tournaments of the entire year, and the AOS Cup for Pokemon Unite, it's an absolute highlight for me and anybody who tunes in. So make sure to watch Sunday for those Grand Finals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I hope that they follow your words and fill the Twitch chat and those seats in the venue with tons of hype. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to move on to our next segment now, folks. This is Pokemon TCG, and our special expert calling in to break things down is none other than Joe Bernard. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great, thanks so much. Hello from across the pond already, Rachel and Adam. I'm ready to talk some TCG with you both.
Oh yeah. Fantastic. I'm so excited you came ready, because first up, I need kind of your general thoughts to get us prepared for the 2025 season and the competition coming up. What's the lay of the land right now?
Well, we've had one international championship so far, a handful of regional events so far. I think we've had some absolutely exceptional finals, specifically with our regional championship so far. We've seen such fantastic play from a number of top players. I've really enjoyed how this season has shaped out. We've seen some great plays from some fantastic players, and we're going to be talking about some of those players throughout the day as well, but also some big Japanese winners this season, which is massive because they can actually earn an invite this season through our structure. And there's already been 2 Japanese regional winners this season, which for the first time means they can join the World Championships through our system, which is a real refreshing change, I think, and making this game even more international than ever.
That's a really good point. The game has gotten bigger, and now those lines are starting to bleed over and blend some of our communities together that have been somewhat sectioned off for a few years.
Yeah, it's great just seeing the Japanese players. Obviously, they normally play a little bit ahead of us in terms of they have more cards released often. So it's cool to see them coming back and showing us what could be possible in this metagame, which is really interesting. And actually heading into the EUIC, there is a brand new set for us to contend with as well. The first time in Europe, at the very least, that we're going to be slinging down cards with the Prismatic Evolutions expansion included. And that's making for a really interesting showing, because this is the time where those innovative deck builders, they get rewarded for putting those reps in, for being the trendsetters, and for coming up with the best strategies and being able to adapt.
We're going to dig into that, certainly. But for now, I know that you also wanted to break down some of your players to watch, some of your names for our audience to keep an eye out for. If you want to go ahead and jump right into it, Joe.
Absolutely. We'll start with the European region, of course. There's a lot of great talented players out there. Alberto Conti is our top-ranked EU player this season, has really gained and garnered success by mastering one archetype and piloting it through a number of tournaments, making those little tweaks, those little adjustments, but ultimately just playing it better than everyone else. He's been playing the Regidrago V-Star archetype for a number of months now to such a high mastery that it's no surprise that we're seeing these consistent performances over and over again from him. And just to really outline that point, he got a top 4 in Lille, then just a month later came back and got a first place in Gdansk. That's something you don't see every day. Alberto is a phenomenal pilot of this archetype, but that then brings into question this big issue of Regidrago V-Star. Is it still going to be that deck going into the EUIC with this new expansion coming out? There's a question mark around this deck, so that is a big question for Alberto specifically, because he is so stubborn with sticking with his deck choice through thick and thin. So if we see him stick with Regidrago, you know he's come up with something good. So definitely a player that I'm keeping an eye out for. Also in Europe, we can't not mention Tord Reklev. I think it's a pretty glaring omission if we don't. It's hard to really articulate just how dominant he is as a player. I'm going to try and do my best. He's a 5-time international champion, but the EUIC is really where he shines above all else. He's only missed top 8 once since the inception of the European International Championships, and that's because he lost a win in and still got top 16. So 2 victories, second place, all top 8s. Tord is absolutely absurd as a player, and the EUIC is where he shines the most. So you have to think that he's a shoo-in for another fantastic performance. You have to expect at least a top 16, which is absurd to say of anyone. And I think we're also going to be speaking to Tord later, which is something I really want to hear, his mentality going into this new format, because that's where I think Tord really shines as a player. He is right on the pulse with deck building and deck choice, and that's how he so often gets ahead at internationals. When it's the first time we can unveil these formats, he can be right at the forefront of creating new deck lists. That's been the key to his success for a number of years now.
We're going to hear a little bit more from Tord Reklev directly a little bit later, folks, so make sure you stay tuned for that. He's a player that is going to not only discover what the new meta is, but kind of dictates the meta, so to speak. He has a lot of imitators. A lot of people are going to be taking his advice and deck building choices to heart for any competitions, even beyond EUIC.
Yeah, and you mentioned the new cards that are available for this tournament. We know that he's out in Fukuoka cooking up some magic to bring to us, so we can't wait to see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, even when Tord's distracted in Japan, I'm certain he'll have put enough time into the EUIC that it's not going to be an issue for him. He'll make the trip back and be right on top form. Just one more player I want to mention from Europe, because they're also having such a phenomenal season. Oivan as well. The phenomenal Finn with these finishers that just don't stop. He is a standout pilot of this Charizard Pidgeot archetype. And what I loved about him was how stubborn he was, to be honest with you. Just sticking to his guns with Pokestop as this stadium that he almost got mocked for after his first placement. But he stuck with it and proved us right, that he was right again, really. He got a second place finish, lost in a mirror match to a friend of his, and then comes back and gets a victory at the very next tournament. Again, just absurd consistency from a player that, you know, he's had great results for a decent number of years, but now he's really laid his stake in the ground that he is a tournament winner and has what it takes to go all the way. So I'm really excited to see what he can do at this higher level of tournament.
Having the ability to be so confident in a strange pick for your deck is something that we might not see too much in Pokemon TCG. We look at so much data, so much meta performance, what other top players are picking. So you have to be so confident if you're going to be like, well, Pokestop and Charizard are just optimal, and if you don't like it, then I'm just going to have to show you the results here for a tournament, especially Charizard being, in general, I would say, a wild card pick for recent tournaments.
Yeah, I think it was one of those top contenders, but might be in a bit of flux that we'll talk about momentarily. Let's zip over to NA then, because I also want to mention Alex Szymanski, because he's got some history with the EUIC. He is an EUIC champion back in 2023 and really shocked the world, to be honest with you. He played an Arceus V-Star archetype, which isn't too surprising, but he had a Duraludon VMAX in there, and a Alolan Vulpix V-Star, 2 Drapion V in the deck list. That really was surprising. Like, it's a crazy concoction to construct. But he somehow pinpointed a metagame for this combination of cards to do well. And that's what I think sets Alex apart from a lot of the other top players. Oftentimes you'll see the best in the game playing ironed out, consistent deck lists over and over again and becoming masters of it. Whereas Alex, he jumps around. He thinks there's a best deck for a single tournament. He will try and target metagames. He's very happy to take risks, and he can still go far with these decks that he may not even have the most experience with, simply because he's so good at learning on the fly with these decks and carving out in-game strategies, which is so different from many other players. And he's even on a hot streak recently. You know, he's just got that second place in San Antonio with Palkia Noctowl, a very complicated archetype with a lot of intricate lines of play, where the Noctowl is cherry-picking those crucial pieces. So he has to be completely on the ball with that deck to get the most out of it. And we saw a few times on the stream that he really was able to do so. So I'm really excited to see what Alex brings, because you can never really predict it, especially with a new format like this.
It is a fun little mystery box that we in the TCG community always look forward to. But what is Szymanski on, the people ask? United Wings was another like stunning brew from his camp from a while ago. I believe it was NAIC that same year after he had gotten that big victory. And his ability, as you said, Joe, to come up with plans on the fly is hopefully going to be another marker for success for EUIC.
Yeah, I've no doubt of that. Let's talk about Latin America then, because Giovanni Sasso, as an aged up senior, is doing absolutely exceptional. This is definitely a player to watch right now, because he is stunning in the Masters division. He's the top ranked player in LATAM right now, and he's had this absurd run with a string of special events and regionals where he got a second, then a first, then a second place finish, all with Terrapagos Noctowl again, a very complicated archetype that has a lot of intricate lines where you're again cherry picking cards with Noctowl, with Pidgeotty X as well, trying to construct Briar situations and Dust Noir to have absurd board state swings in one go. A really difficult deck to pilot, and yes, he's been able to master it. And after he secured his World's Invitation with that first place finish, he's then sort of jumped around a few different decks as well. So I think he's still trying to find his footing with his next best favorite deck, because we've seen him play some Clorf recently. We've seen an Archer Ludon from him to a top 32 placement as well. So Giovanni's still trying to find that next deck, the next chapter for him as he progresses as a player. But he's also got history at the EUIC as well. He got a top 8 finish as a senior last year. So I'm certain he wants to make a splash in the Masters division this time around.
This is a scary pool of players. Every time there's a building sense of dread here, I think, if you're one of the players looking to really fight their way up through the ranks, but also this huge sense of hope with so many changes on the horizon.
I think so, exactly. And I've saved the best to last, because we have Brent Tonneson of the OCIC as my representative here to keep an eye out for, because he is the top ranked player globally. Yes, he hails from Oceania, but you'll find him pretty much everywhere. He's coming to the American tournaments. He's coming to the European events. He was just in Merida last weekend. I mean, this guy likes to travel. He does not mind the grind at all. And he's been making waves with Regidrago V-Star the last few months. Had that amazing second place finish at the LAIC, where he lost in that mirror match. But again, demonstrated his deck list as the sort of the stepping stone for everyone else to build off of, I think it's fair to say. And he's also got that same question that I mentioned with Alberto, where Regidrago has been so dominant. He's played it for a long time with amazing success. But we did see in Merida just last weekend, the first opportunity, the first major of Prismatic Evolutions, he has pivoted. He changed and played Dragapult Dust Noir. And, well, unsurprisingly, he made the asymmetrical top cut. So he's had another great finish. He's proven that he's not that one-trick pony at all. And he will find the best deck for the International Championships. He has this fantastic, phenomenal testing group in Oceania as well. So I'm certain that he and his team will be coming up with a very powerful deck list of probably one of the strongest decks in the game. I would tout probably Dragapult or Gardevoir if I had to make an educated guess.
Yeah, that for me personally has been the marker, I think, of that region, is their ability to quickly identify the strong deck for a format and be willing to bring it to a major tournament before it's actually proven. And now as you said, Joe, head into Prismatic Evolution's format, what are some of the strange changes or interesting decks that we need to be on the lookout for?
Well, great things, they come in small packages, and nothing illustrates that better than this new Budu coming out of Prismatic Evolutions. This 130 hit point basic that has a 0 energy attack cost will be shaking up the game massively because it has terrifying text on it. Item lock. It's back. It's got no attack cost, so it can be splashed into all sorts of things. It's a very, very versatile card, and it shuts down huge portions of many archetypes. We know that the top contenders in the previous formats, really the tug of war was between Regidrago, V-Star, and Charizard. I've already mentioned it a couple of times, just talking about our players and how they've achieved success. But these are the two archetypes that I feel get derailed most by Budu, to be honest with you. This attack can shut down Rare Candy, which shuts down those big stage 2 options that Charizard, of course, has to utilize. And the Regidrago V-Star archetype, it needs to utilize those Ultra Balls to discard its dragons in the first instance. And it often relies on Energy Switch to get those turn 2 attacks off to accelerate onto the Regidrago itself via the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. So this Budu waggles the finger. It says, no, not turn 2, slow down, let me build my board behind it. And that has paved the way for a real shake-up. Even if this one edition is a one count in a handful of deck lists, it is making this really profound impact, I think, on the metagame, and has opened up the door for a few different archetypes to be at the top now.
Yeah, let's have a look at that right now, Joe, because with just the threat of item lock, not only does it shift the way current archetypes are built, as you said, creates space for some of these new decks to shine.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the top meta decks first, I think, because both the Dragapults and the Gardevoir, they're likely going to include this Budu into their deck because they are setup based builds. They're stage 2s, but they don't often rely on Rare Candy quite as much as a Charizard will. They're quite happy to slowly evolve up into their stage 1 Pokemon because Drakloak and Kirlia, they have some of the strongest draw-based abilities in the game. So as long as you can naturally evolve up into these Pokemon, you're going to still see more cards cycle through your deck and get your strategy online. Gardevoir can utilize some very powerful single prize Pokemon, and itself is a very tanky option. We've seen recently Hero's Cape coming back into Gardevoir EX to make that Pokemon much more difficult to KO, with some healing from Monkey Dory as well, which gives it a lot of flexibility, a lot of ways to play around Serendipity EX from the opponent, so that you choose when you're taking those prize cards and denying a crucial draw engine from many decks. And Dragapult naturally is very flexible with its own damage output as well. Of course, that Phantom Dive, so flexible. Radiant Alakazam is in the deck as well for even more manipulation. Dusknoir often is a partner with the Dragapult EX. So both these archetypes can really play around that prize map and get very creative. They can quite happily go down a couple of prizes and then find their way back into the game as they develop their draw engine and try and catch up with some of these single prize options in certain instances. But it's quite a different story for the other top contenders. Miraidon has really found a great niche, a great pocket in the metagame, actually. And we saw this in Merida, even with 5 of the top 14 decks, the asymmetrical cut, were Miraidon. So this has really been profiting, to be honest with you, and Azul actually won the entire event. Quick shout out to him. I know I didn't mention him in NA, but he got his 8th regional win piloting Miraidon, which means he's the most regional winningest player of all time, which is just phenomenal as well, by the way. But Miraidon, this aggressive deck that utilizes Iron Hands EX more often than not, allows you to really speed up that prize race. Those single prize Pokemon, they now give up 2 prize cards. You really come out the gate swinging. You utilize that Area 0 Underdepths to have that really wide bench. It makes your Raikou V a much more aggressive attacking option, but it also means you get to litter your bench with lots of draw-based ability Pokemon like that Mew EX, like Serendipity EX, to maneuver around and continue drawing cards as you aggressively race through these prizes, which is phenomenal. Some people might shy away from this because you do rely on that electric generator item card, which isn't always guaranteed, of course, but there are situations where this can be really, really powerful. Then finally, in that top meta decks, Lugia V-Star is also in there. Still a very consistent strategy, not too phased by Budu because you at the very least have the Read the Wind attack from Lugia, which can still allow you to discard your Archeops. And again, this is a toolbox of attackers. You have some great single prize options. There's Tinchino, and let's not forget the second sort of best card in Prismatic Evolutions, the Regigigas coming into the deck as well, which allows you to have an even more efficient basic attacking option into the Terrestrial Pokemon, the Dragapults, the Charizards, the Ceruledges, that sort of thing. That's another great attacking card in the mix. but then also it can utilize the Iron Hands. It can also utilize the Wellspring Ogerpon. So there's a lot of opportunity for Lugia to find multi-prize turns into some of these setup decks. So that's why they're the sort of top contenders right now, I would say. But there are some other really interesting ones to look at as well. Just noting, really, from these versatile options, Archludon, it's won a massive tournament in Japan. It won the Osaka Champions League. That's a 5,000 player tournament, not to be sniffed at all. This one's more of a metagame call, I would say. This one relies on its high hit points and tanking to be out of range for the most part of Dragapult. It will then try and utilize some healing cards. Scoop Up Cyclone is often the A spec in the deck list. Professor Churro scenario, another great way to pick up your Pokemon. And because of that Assemble Alloy ability, you get to re-accelerate those energies all over again and continue that chain of attacks. So I think Archludon finds itself in a position where it's very happy to face Dragapult and quite happy to capitalize on Miraidon as well. So I think this is a really well-positioned deck going into the EUIC. Ceruledge, that aggressive beat stick archetype, I think you could almost bundle that in with Raging Bolt EX, although Ceruledge likes to utilize that Palkia V-Star often as a backup attacker, where now you can have a spread damage approach from a Radiant Greninja, utilizing that Star Portal from the Palkia, which is very powerful. Raging Bolt has that ridiculous damage output at its disposal. Those are the sort of aggressive other archetypes in the format right now. And then there's Terapagos that can also really utilize Budu in a pretty dangerous way, actually. It utilizes the poison package, so that little measly 10 damage output really becomes something much more dangerous, where you can add a Binding Mochi tool, you can utilize the Brute Bonnet and the Hisuian Radiant Sneasler as well. So now you can be dealing effectively 80 damage from this Budu with the Pokemon Checkup being counted there as well. So yeah, the Budu can now be taking single prize knockouts, which is really allowing this deck to be aggressive and disruptive at the same time. So that's why these are some of the more versatile picks that I think in the right metagame could still have really deep runs, to be honest with you. And there's also the looming fear of control, of course. You can never not think about control in this format. It's not always about taking those 6 prize cards, as we've seen just recently in the San Antonio Regional Championships. In top 4, James Kowalski with that Pidgeot control. It's an archetype that has, again, all of these crazy attackers that are very difficult to play around. It can always find some wiggle room, some ways, the flaws in other archetypes it can pounce on more often than not. And it too can win a prize race if it really has to later on in the game. But there was also the Snorlax archetype making top 8 as well with Salmit, a very, very accomplished Snorlax player, plays a lot online. So seeing both of these methods of control, I wouldn't be surprised if they once again make a splash at the EUIC.
With such a wide open meta, players will sometimes shy away from playing control because you aren't quite sure what you're going to be going up against at any given time. But the sword cuts both ways, because if you are thinking that control isn't going to be present in the tournament, you're going to walk right into it.
Yeah, and Regidrago V-Star was one of the more difficult archetypes because its V-Star power inherently recovers cards from that discard pile. So it was a very difficult resource matchup for the controlling decks. So it quite welcomes the fact that Regidrago V-Star might be less popular. So definitely one that I have my eye out for.
Joe, you've brought us a masterclass in preparation here. I feel ready to play almost as much as watch. But
fantastic, yeah.
We've got even more coming for viewers who are enjoying the breakdowns. We have the competition coming up. We're going to have Joe there breaking it down for us in person. Thank goodness, because what a genius. And we've got some stuff to distribute just for watching. So you don't even have to be as smart as Joe. You can be like me, just hang out and pick up a rare, you get the special illustration rare Eevee EX in Pokemon TCG Live. You can have that for yourself. Just to commemorate what an incredible tournament it is. And
I love the giveaways. Everybody's in the chat. Wait, did they announce the code yet? I got to put this in. I got to get my Eevee EX and the sort of Eeveelution toolbox. You know, is a little rogue deck on the side that we got to let cook a little bit more. But maybe you, with the help of this Eevee EX, can help us find the recipe. And if you're just hanging out in the Twitch chat as well, you're going to get some Twitch drops. Make sure you stay tuned in, watch the stream, and make sure you pick up these goodies as well as part of the Twitch drop system.
Yeah, I think these Eevees have a lot of potential post-rotation as well, to be honest with you. Some unique abilities in there. Of course, they're going to look awesome to bling out your collection as you play, but there's some actually really good synergies with the Eevee cards. I think Flareon EX is the one that I have my eye out for most. Has some great energy acceleration, but even the Eevee EX itself, it has great synergies. It's a colorless Pokemon, and it's also Terrestrial, so you can use Glass Trumpet for energy acceleration. You can utilize Noctowl again as like a great consistency engine. I think there's a lot to this card, and I think when we have rotation in just a couple months now, we'll start seeing this really flourish, to be honest with you. So great to pick these up, I think, with the Twitch drops.
Yeah, that really is a lot to look forward to, not just at EUIC, but certainly further beyond. Can I get any final thoughts from you as well, Joe, before we actually move over to hear a little bit more from Tord Reklev and some of his thoughts about this upcoming format?
Well, I don't want to hold that up too much, so I'll just say that I'm going to be competing. So I've been, as you might have heard, I'm putting a lot of work in. So I'm really hoping that I can make the right decision and make those last final changes to my own deck list before heading out to London and giving it my best shot.
Yeah, good luck with that. We'll be watching and cheering you on, Joe.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to head over to our interview with Tord Reklev himself. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, folks. Hey everyone, we're joined here by Tord Reklev himself. Now Tord, you are a player who does not need an introduction, but just in case we have a couple people in the audience today who might not be familiar with you, tell us a little about who you are and how long you've been playing Pokemon competitively.
Oh, okay. All right. So my name is Tord Reklev. I am a Pokemon player from Norway. And I've been playing Pokemon essentially my entire life. My mom taught me the game when I was 5 years old. I started going to events and competing when I was 11 and never really stopped from there. And now I'm 30, so it's been quite a lot of years playing this game competitively. And I had a decent amount of fortune as well, especially the last decade or so playing this game. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Tord, as a player who has won every international championship, like what keeps you in it? What is behind this drive to keep improving, to keep achieving?
I mean, I really enjoy the game, so that's the main motivator. I have a lot of fun with it, but I'm also very competitive, which I noticed. So I know I keep wanting to push myself and compete at the highest level I can every time. So that just naturally means I put in a lot of time, and I think that also kind of accumulates over the years as well. If I keep putting in a lot of time for each and every event to prepare for, then like the time is never wasted, right? Like that means I can improve as a player for future events, future formats, and so on. So it's definitely like a little bit of an advantage having played so long and so much Pokemon. I think that definitely helps.
All that experience definitely stacks.
Yeah, I think you're really touching on a lot of points that any other competitor would certainly agree with. When you're at the top of your game, the top of the game, you get to decide what the limits are. And I guess touching on that, what are your thoughts on the metagame for EUIC? Prismatic Evolutions being a big part of the new deck building styles for this event. How's that affected your testing?
So Prismatic Evolutions is really interesting because the set itself has a lot of really cool cards for collectors, but there's not actually that many competitively viable cards, but there's like a couple which have like really changed the dynamics between the very top decks we have again. So the main, say, culprit from this new set is Bidoof. It's a little baby Pokemon, 30 HP, no retreat, no attack cost, but it does 10 and item locks the opponent again. And there are a lot of decks in the format that's really dependent on items to just do that initial setup. The strongest deck we had in format before this set was Regidrago V-Star, had like by far the most tournament success. And now heading into this format again, like the deck seems to be really struggling. It has not really had a great time since Bidoof, and just because it really, is hindered by not being allowed to play these energy switches to charge the initial Regidrago V-Star, or play these Ultra Balls to get these dragons in the discard pile and all that. So like the whole metagame has kind of shifted because we no longer have this this really strong dragon deck is now so handicapped by Bidoof, and like the absolute slowest decks that benefit the most from this item lock and everything being slowed down are now seeing themselves as the main threats. And I'm talking about decks like Gardevoir and Dragapult. They're really thriving, and seems like Lugia and Miraidon are also going to be very popular for this event.
Tord, even just with that answer there, it's a small glimpse into how much work goes into every competition that you attend and how much thought goes into every deck that you bring. So with this kind of approach to competitive Pokemon, but a lifelong fandom of enjoying the game, enjoying the universe, I gotta ask, what has been like your personal favorite experience in all of it?
Favorite experience? It's the same boring answer as most people give, that like after some time you're mainly in the game still because of all the connections you built, I think. And I think it's true for me as well. I know a lot of people in this game, so my whole life is basically centered around these people as well. So I'm just very, very committed to everything that goes on here. And so I enjoy the social aspect. I enjoy the traveling as well, like getting to go all over the world to play Pokemon, do a little bit of sightseeing here and there. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, currently I'm in Japan as well, and next week I will be in London. And so I get to do a lot of traveling for these events, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of great parts about being involved in competitive Pokemon.
Yeah, I know you thought that your answer would be a little generic, right? Oh, this is what everybody says. But I think coming from you specifically, Tord, it holds even more weight. The fact that you've been such a long-term competitor, a long-term member of the community, seen such success, and you're still enjoying it to this day, I think speaks volumes to the strength of the Pokemon community, as you had already pointed out. And as you're going into EUIC next week, what are your thoughts about the year since you won it the last time?
Oh, since we played last year, so last year I went in with Charizard EX. We're talking a little bit of metagame, right? And Charizard EX is still not a bad deck, but you also seems to hit that the hardest, so like one of the hardest decks that get hit by Bidoof is definitely Charizard. So I'm not sure if I want to bring that deck back again, but I'm currently liking the other Stage 2 decks as well. So you probably know, if you've been following me, that I played a lot of Gardevoir in the past as well. I played a lot of Dragapult in the past too. So those are currently my my two favorite contenders heading into this week. And then if I were to bet on like any deck to take it all down, I would probably give it to one of these two decks again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and in your consideration of what deck to bring, are there any particular players that you're hoping to absolutely pick up a win against, or that you're a little bit worried that would stand kind of the greatest resistance against what you're hoping to bring?
So when you enter an event with this many people, this will actually be the biggest TPCI event we ever had, like in attendance-wise. So this will be very interesting. So I think that you're probably a little bit too narrow if you're just aiming to beat like one or two players, so like whatever they bring, right? There is like so incredibly low percentage chance that you actually hit these players regardless. Even if like they're very good, right? Then they need to succeed to go really far, and you need to succeed to go really far to still have, you know, a reasonable chance of hitting them again.
And as we kind of get towards the end of this interview, Tord, thank you once again. I think that the people at home really want to know, what is your favorite Pokemon?
My favorite Pokemon is Celebi. I bring a plushie to every single event, and usually when I'm on the stream table, I put it on the table as well. So that's a pretty good indicator. So if you haven't been able to guess it yet, the answer is Celebi.
And why Celebi? Is it the time travel?
That's a good question. I don't know, there was something about the timing, about the fourth movie when I was young, I think. They were like very nostalgic for me, but like the Celebi movie, and it's also green, and green is my favorite color, so it's been like my little lucky mascot, I think. So it's really as simple as that.
Get a little bit more backstory on Tord Reklev, and hopefully that Celebi will bring you a little bit more luck at EUIC. Thank you once again for taking the time to share your thoughts about this upcoming competition, and hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of your time in Japan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys for having me on.
An excellent segment, excellent interview from Toward Reklev, one of the best players of the game and one of our big names to watch. So that's going to conclude our TCG segment, folks. We're moving right along into Pokemon Go. And our expert to help break things down for EUIC is none other than Will. How you doing, Will? There he is.
Hey Adam, I'm doing great. Rachel, I hope you're doing well. Happy Valentine's Day to you both. I'm so excited to talk all things Pokemon Go at EUIC this year.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day to you too, Will, and thank you for coming out the gate with such positive energy here. We're going to roll that right into Go, because that's what Go's all about, right?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. We have some really talented trainers coming up here at EUIC. It's going to be, I think, our biggest event ever. I think we have 400 participants signed up for this. A lot of trainers are looking at the numbers. I know our director, Chris Brown, posted a really fascinating graphic about attendance. Pokemon Go is on the rise, and there's so many talented trainers. It was incredibly difficult, you guys, to narrow this down to just a few.
Yeah, this has been a culmination of so much love and effort from the community. Pokemon Go deserves all of its flowers, all the growth that it has seen, and good thing we have you here to break it down. What are these top players you have set up for us, Will?
Let's start in the EU, and I picked these 3 trainers first of all because they're very talented, but secondly because they have some of the snazziest nicknames. So I want to get some reactions from you both as we read these off. You can't talk about the EU competitive scene without mentioning Colin 6, aka the final boss, as a lot of trainers have dubbed him. Once you square up against Colin, very, very few trainers come out of the other side. And Colin actually started off his competitive career with a bang because he entered into the Lille Regional Championships in 2023 and won his very first tournament appearance. So we knew he was destined for greatness from the very beginning. I think Colin is definitely a shoo-in for Top Cut. And when you see his latest performances, for example, this season against Boom 20 in the Grand Finals, it was an Ariados, Shadow Drapion mirror match. Both teams very, very similar, but Colin really demonstrated his technical mastery. And I just want to let you both in on a secret. Pokemon Go is so fast, a lot of the time it's hard to see what the kind of nuances are, what these players are doing, what they're thinking, and how good their timing is on their charge attacks and fast attacks. I actually put that VOD on mute, and I didn't listen to any commentary, no music or anything, and I just watched the games. And after that tournament, I knew Colin was good, but after that tournament, watching just in heavy detail, he's great. He's elevated to one of the best trainers in the EU, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with at EUIC.
We've, especially when it comes to other games, we talk so much about the team building and the meta choices and how that's going to affect performance. But Pokemon Go has this extra layer of mechanical execution that really allows these trainers to demonstrate why they're the best of the best.
Yeah, like a fighting game level timing and precision. And also, you promised us a nickname, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
boss indeed.
Colin.
The final boss.
Colin has to be the final boss, right? Definitely a force to be reckoned with. And out of his Grand Finals appearances, I believe he's won 3 regional championships and has lost 2 Grand Finals appearances. But it's always very, very heated when he does reach that Grand Finals stage.
Well, you'll know you're there when the music kicks on.
Yeah.
Is this instance to the door closed behind me?
Exactly right. Well, I'm ready to move on to our next trainer. I wanted to mention a trainer from Germany. This is Ziz Zweiles, affectionately nicknamed the Reverse Engineer. And what he likes to do is he looks at the overall meta and he finds those core breakers, those really, really intense Pokemon that are difficult to position, but once you get them in the right position, they're absolutely a menace to what a lot of these trainers are bringing. For example, this season, he's done incredibly well with both Shadow Driftblim and B-Barrel. Shout out to Gabby. I know she's a big new fan. B-Barrel in the Grand Finals was such a refreshing thing to see, and Ziz Zweiles was able to pull it off. And if you look back at the World Championships in Hawaii last season, his matchup, Ziz Zweiles versus Cindy from Canada, that was one of the most replayed matches of the entire VOD. I looked back, I looked at the spikes in the viewership, and the reason was, you guys, he was playing Shadow Gyarados at the World Championships, which is like, I don't know. If you gave me 100 guesses as to what he would bring to the biggest competition of the year, I would not say Shadow Gyarados. And the icing on the cake here is that he was actually the highest finisher at the World Championships last year of the 3 EU trainers that I mentioned, and he did it with Shadow Gyarados.
Very impressive indeed. The Reverse Engineer. I'm looking forward to another interesting meta shakeup for EUIC.
It's really, I'm going to talk more about this later, but it's really interesting to see if these core breaker picks are actually champion caliber picks. And Zeus Wireless is probably going to bring one of his own to the tournament. But I can't talk about EU without mentioning the queen of PvP. Let's talk about Palasha 97. Palasha is very famous for her maneuver on stage where she takes her Magnezone plushie and she cooks with it. She's cooking, right? She's cooking on stage and she wild charges and absolutely destroys everybody in her path. But Palasha is definitely a trainer that has seen a lot of success over the past 2 seasons. This season is a little different because the meta has shifted a lot. We've got a lot of ground type Pokemon in the meta, a lot of pressure, a lot of fighters in Annihilate and Primeape. Her Shadow Magnezone hasn't really found a good niche. So she's had to kind of pivot and rely more on Shadow Kanto Marowak this season. She's got a couple of top 8 finishes, which for anyone would be a successful season, but I know Palasha wants more. She's going to look to win at EUIC, where she had actually an incredible performance last season, finishing 4th overall.
Yeah, we see her a lot in the players to watch out for. She's always bringing something fresh, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what she brings to EUIC.
Exactly right. Palasha is really talented, but there are other regions as well. I know we love to give EU our flowers, as we should, but I think it's time we move on to the North America region. We got to talk about Out of Pocket, right? Out of Pocket, one of the most steady trainers in the championship series. Amazing fact is that both Out of Pocket and the trainer that we're going to mention after him have 26 career Play Pokemon appearances over the past 3 years in the Masters division. 26 appearances each. Now, Out of Pocket's biggest win was NAIC last year, where he was able to win with his favorite Pokemon, Shadow Quagsire. Again, like you said earlier, Rachel, the top trainers win with their favorites, and I think Out of Pocket was able to do that. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. Of course, the original, the OG. But yeah, Out of Pocket is incredible. Very, very measured. In his latest tournament appearance, he was actually playing Araquanid, a Pokemon that our friend Emmy Weedle, that I think we interviewed, will probably mention down the road.
Love to see it.
Absolutely.
Love to see the inventiveness, the creativity, and the consistency. 26 in just that short amount of time. He's snowballing to something.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Out of Pocket is a young up-and-comer, but we also have Dunebug97, who arguably had the most complete competitive season of Pokemon GO of all time. Guys, last season, he won 3 regional championships, and he also was the runner-up at EUIC as well. He was the last kind of, I don't want to say invader from out of region to come into EU and try to win it all, but Emmy Weedle stopped him in his tracks. Dunebug kicked off his season last year with a monstrous, absolute Herculean task of dropping to the loser's bracket in the first round of the tournament and then winning 14 rounds straight to take the crown in San Antonio. Then he had another tournament appearance where he won. He went to EUIC, got 2nd place, which is pretty good. And then he did a victory lap, came back to Orlando with Shadow Pidgeot, which no one had expected at all, and won in Orlando. And this season, you could argue maybe he's not living up to the kind of level, caliber of his own expectations, but I think Dunebug is going to come back with a vengeance at EUIC. He wants to take the crown at the Excel Center.
Wow. Yeah. No wonder. He's been training with all these extra medals that he won around his neck. He's got to like rebuild the stamina, come back up. That's fine, Dunebug. It's all the process.
Be just like taking off the weights and unleashing his full power for EUIC.
Exactly right. Let's go ahead and move down to LATAM. I have to mention this trainer because they're just too big to ignore. This trainer is larger than life. Marto Galde. He's won a regional championship this season. He's won an international championship this season at LAIC. And he's won a special event just last weekend. All right, this trainer is absolutely on fire and did all this after finishing 3rd overall at the World Championships in Hawaii with Whimsicott. You guys. I'm telling you, Pokemon GO is so much fun. I know we have these really strong, overpowered Pokemon in VG and TCG, but I'm telling you, Pokemon GO, you can play with some really cute Pokemon. Marto Galde, incredibly talented. I think that his winning team from LAIC is actually an inspiration for our Twitch drops that we'll mention later, so stay tuned for that. But Marto, so talented. I believe he might have won the Travel Award to come to EUIC as well, so I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, a strong player with a lot of heart, source of great moments for the game, and yeah, a nice innovation as well.
Exciting player to watch out of the game too. So much emotion, and you really feel like you win, you lose alongside him.
Yeah, Marto's really an emotional roller coaster. Either you're laughing on one end of the spectrum or you're crying because it's just so emotional and so touching. But speaking of someone who reaches out and touches other players' hearts, let's talk about Richie1409. Richie from Mexico is one of the most talented trainers, but he was for a very long time kind of on the bench, kind of a team captain, kind of helping his friends and encouraging everyone else around him. If you ever talk to Richie, he's one of the warmest, kindest people you'll ever meet, and he always is looking out for everyone else but himself. And I said for a long time that Richie had a tables version where he was beating really talented trainers, doing really well. And then there was a stage version of Richie where he wasn't quite as sharp. Maybe the timing was a little bit off. Maybe he wasn't as bold with his calls. But Richie has really seriously come into his own. He actually pioneered the Primeape and Galarian Corsola core to win in Bogota this season. And he was top 8, I believe, at LAIC as well. So I'm really excited to see what Richie can do.
A player like that just needed to get over that hump of getting used to the growth of Pokemon Go, right? At any other game that doesn't reach these sorts of heights, you maybe don't need to deal with playing up on the big stage, playing in front of so many adoring fans and viewers. And so a player like him that has the skill, has the meta knowledge, finally just getting a little bit of comfort with his notoriety and star power is a great final ingredient to have.
And you have to give a little credit to every competitor that steps up at these tournaments, that plays at these tables, that is brave enough to go and play on stage, because we see that it is a huge factor in performance. And congratulations to Richie for overcoming that last step.
Yeah, exactly. Richie's is really coming into his own, and I can't wait to see what he does. It's one of those instances where someone is kind and gentle and good spirited, and then you find out they're really, really good at the game too. And it's like, man, what can't Richie do? Let's move over to the Oceania region. This might as well be a wild card kind of slot that we're drawing from, because we don't see much of these trainers on the official streams, but we do know a couple of things. We know that Rick Flareon is incredibly talented, and he relied a lot on Dragon plus Lantern core last season. This season, he's really leaned towards Shadow for Alligator and Clodsire core. And I'm going to explain all these cores here in a few minutes as well, so make sure to not click away from the stream. But very, very talented player. We know Rick Flareon is one of the mainstays in the Oceania region. You could put him up there with the likes of Avrip and Valiant Fish as being some of the most talented. And speaking of Avrip, that's the other trainer I wanted to mention from OC. Avrip, very, very talented. I saw he was posting on socials that he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it to EUIC. Thankfully, he is, and I'm really excited to see him compete. Avrip leaned a lot on double flying types with Skarmory and Altaria last season. Now he's got a big challenge ahead of him. He's so far in 2025 been playing Shadow Drapion and Ariados, which is actually very akin to what Colin and Boom were playing in EU. So will his style mesh well with the European battlefield? Only time will tell.
Yeah, these players that sort of come out of a wild card region still need to be respected, even if we don't have a lot of direct clips and things of that nature to really point to say this player's got what it takes. When you are still one of the top names associated with your region of the world, that I think alone speaks for itself.
Yeah. And if you're new to Pokemon Go competition, or you just want to see one of the highlights we've had in the season so far, well, you got something special for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pokemon Go is definitely a complex game. It's definitely a little bit challenging to master, but there's so many different ways that you can get involved and you can learn the format. So again, I just mentioned a few of the top trainers that were going to be appearing. There's so many honorable mentions, like Inadequance, who was the runner-up to Worlds last year, Patoman and Tantan Batus. Again, guys, I was looking at this roster for EUIC, 400 names. It was really like pins and needles trying to pick just the top competitors.
Oh, we know you do your research too. You're describing to us, breaking down the plays, breaking down the viewership, and I know a lot went into this. So we've got some really good players to keep an eye on here. And in all that research, did you find us a clip that's really exemplative of the skills we're about to see perhaps at EUIC?
Absolutely. So we're going to take a look at the biggest moment of the season so far. This was Marto Galde at LAIC. Decisive Game 5, bracket reset. The Brazilian hometown hero, Vitorello, tried to take him down. Marto, on a hope and a prayer, hangs on through the Brave Bird and fires off the play rough. He knows his calcs. He knows it's enough. Gets all those bubbles and all the damage to KO that Galarian Moltres and really just win the biggest competition of his entire life. Marto is a trainer who, again, succeeded at Worlds, finished finished third overall, won a regional here or there, but this is really what he believes he can do. Winning an international championship was on his checklist. He marked that off with absolute fury after taking out some of the best trainers in LATAM. And you can see it all, right? You can see the shock, the surprise, the hype, and even some of the tears at the end. I'm telling you, when you get Marto, you get the full spectrum.
Yeah, seeing the despair here, and when the Azumarill hangs on with just a little bit of life, it seems like he knows the victory is certain. And what a pop-off.
Love watching games from LAIC. Love the audience. And you know what? I think EUIC is going to live up to this year because a lot of great competition coming their way.
With so many great players, you know that the hype moments are just going to print themselves.
I'm telling you, at EUIC last year, when Emmy Weedle won, there was a crowd of people that took him off the stage and he was crowd surfing. So we're going to do it big at this international championship.
Well, how are we going to do it, Will? As I understand it, you've got a breakdown of the current meta for us that we saw it. We were like, Will, what is this? Then you started explaining. Viewers, you are in for a real lesson here.
Yeah, take it away.
Absolutely. So I've seen tons of discourse online. The meta's too complicated. It changes all the time. It's impossible to predict. I don't know really what's going on. This, everybody, if you want to get involved in competitive Pokemon Go this season, I really, really encourage you to listen, because it took me a lot of brain power, maximum brain power, to make this. So as you look at that inner ring, you see 6 key Pokemon. Let's start with that Shadow Drapion on the top. Shadow Drapion, going clockwise, we've got Azumarill, Shadow Feraligatr, Galarian Corsola, Annihilate, and Diggersby. I really believe that these 6 Pokemon are the big 6, so to speak. These are the core Pokemon that you can really build around. Now, in these other pie chart slices, you've got complementary picks. For example, if you look at Azumarill, you've got Alolan Sandslash and Morpeko. And if you pair Azumarill with one of those picks, it really meshes well. And you can kind of look through this rotation. You see some very common cores, Shadow Feraligatr and Clodsire. You see the Galarian Corsola and the Primate, or even the Annihilate and Dugong, or the Diggersby Toxapex. So what you need to take from this chart is these 6 Pokemon by themselves are very, very strong, but you need to build in some complementary picks to cover their weaknesses, whether it's grabbing the Air Slash Mandibuzz to pair with your Shadow Drapion, or even using the Diggersby plus Azumarill Shadow Feraligatr, and then being so weak to grass that you have to bring Toxapex and Jumpluff onto your team. There's so much utility here in this graphic, and I really, really encourage you to take a close look, because this is a lot of what we are going to see at EUIC, and I promise everybody, it looks complicated, but it's really not once you wrap your head around it.
Once you find a good starting point, somewhere where you can find your footing and start building a team, it really eases your transition into being a stronger player and learning more competitive nuances. Just another quick question I had for you about this graphic, Will. When it comes to like play style, maybe being more defensive or more offensive, where do these different core Pokemon fall in the pie chart?
Honestly, Skarzak, that's a fantastic question. We saw probably the most aggressive duo from this chart with Richie's win in Bogota. That is the Galarian Corsola with the Primate down there at the bottom. However, if you kind of bundle other Pokemon together with similar coverage and similar roles, for example, taking the Galarian Corsola but pairing it with the Kanto Marowak, you get a lot more bulk, you get a lot more consistency, and it's a lot more flexible. I would say the most flexible core out of this entire chart is going to be at your top left quadrant. That Diggersby and Toxapex core is fantastic. We just saw Rise to Occasion playing that out in his most recent tournament appearance in San Antonio. I really, really encourage you to look at that. But pairing Azumarill with any of these other Pokemon is really, really stout as well. Azumarill, even borrowing that Mandibuzz from that top quadrant to cover its grass weakness, can be a viable strategy. So great question, Adam. I would just say, if you pick a really potent Pokemon like Primate or Morpeko, you got to put some bulk and HP behind it with maybe Azumarill, Diggersby, or Mandibuzz.
Well, I know that we can build out at least one slice of this pie with some help from some Twitch drops over the course of EUIC as well. We've got some special stuff coming up here for you. If you are tuned in and watching, you can grab yourself a timed research with the opportunity to pick up a Jumpluff or we have an Elite TM here to grab as well.
True.
You got to finish the research though, folks. But yeah, meta choice right now. Going to help us build that out, right, Will?
Yeah, Rachel, you're exactly right. So Jumpluff is a very fascinating Pokemon, flying and grass. It can help you cover fighting type Pokemon and opposing grasses like Superior. This is inspired by our LAIC champion, Marto Galladay's Jumpluff. He seems to have a thing for grass types, Whimsicott at Worlds, Jumpluff at LAIC. But it's inspired by his team. Make sure, though, to go ahead and activate this Twitch drop and get started on that timed research. You don't get this automatically. You do have to complete some tasks, but I promise you it's going to be worth it.
And if you get such a great Pokemon that we've already featured as sort of a core of the current complex metagame, it's just another fantastic way to find your footing or maybe even take that first step on your competitive journey.
Yeah, I'll be pulling up your meta chart for use in the future. Thank you, Will.
And to move on, there are a couple more questions that we had based on your expertise coming from social media. This question comes from Morgan H. Gang. Is playing GBL good enough practice to do well in official play Pokemon tournaments?
Absolutely. So Morgan is referring to Go Battle League, which you can access from your app. I will say that fundamentally, for learning the mechanics, the turn durations, the damage amounts, the charge attack timing, all of that, Go Battle League is fantastic for learning all of that. It's also really helpful for helping you to predict what you see because, for example, if you take a look at our chart and you see a Diggersby in the lead, maybe you think back to the chart and you say, oh, it might be a Toxapex in the back or it might be a Jumpluff in the back, but you don't know. And that's where the big difference comes in between Go Battle League and the Show 6 format for the Championship Series. Because in the Show 6 format, literally, Adam, if you and I were battling, we would hand each other team sheets and we would look at each other's teams. And that way you would know, if I want to safe switch my Feraligatr, does Adam have a Superior? Does he have a Jumpluff? What is his best answer if I choose to safe switch this Pokemon, lead it, close with it, etc.? And that's where the big difference comes in. You'll see time and time again, trainers are doing their charge attacks, and then they'll look over. And what they're looking at is the team sheet. And they'll say, I've already seen one or two Pokemon. What is in the back? It's a huge help to predicting the rest of your opponent's team and what they're trying to do.
Hey, we actually got to talk to Emmy Weedle, one of the best Go players in the world, and he definitely agreed with you there, Will. We have a couple more thoughts from Weedle coming up in our interview with him, but before we get to that, I want to give you an opportunity for any final thoughts for the audience before we bring you back later on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. I really feel like this is a big point for competitive Pokemon Go. Year over year, we've been growing really fast. I know that a lot of these trainers are building up more and more accolades. We see international champions, regional champions on this EUIC roster, just as any given slot that you pick. But I really feel like this is important for us. I want the community to show up, to get loud, to show their support in the chat as well, because we're just going up from here. I can't wait to see what NAIC looks like and Worlds, but EUIC is that midway marker. We're going to get a real solid temperature check on what competitive Pokemon Go is going to be like.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all the information that you brought to us, Will. And once again, I'm definitely going to be saving that meta chart for my own personal use. We're going to check back in with you later on at the end of the show. But now we have an interview that we did yesterday with Emmy Weedle, and he has some great thoughts for the upcoming event. Let's check it out. Thank you so much, Emmy Weedle, for joining us, the 2024 EUIC GO champion. We're so excited to have you here, but for players, for fans, everyone watching at home who might not be so familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you got involved in playing competitively in Pokemon Go. How long have you been playing?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Emmy Weedle, the 2024 GO EUIC champion, and I've been playing the game since its release in 2016. However, competitive for 4 years since the COVID lockdown, actually, and strongly competitively since the release of the Championship Series for Pokemon Go back in 2022.
That's really exciting to hear that you started to see success right from the beginning. And now that you've already taken down an international championship, are you planning to travel to some other regions to compete outside of EU this season?
Unfortunately for me, it's only Worlds that I'm really looking to travel out of the region. School is a busy thing for me, and it's also not cheap. So it would be cool. I would highly enjoy traveling to other regions, but I think Worlds is already very big and a great place to compete.
That is the goal for all of the players, certainly, and you've got your eyes on the prize.
Absolutely. Well, I know you're busy then. Do you still have time for Go Battle League? Do you take that as seriously as play Pokemon events?
Oh yeah, of course. I love playing the Go Battle League, and I play it like every day, assuming that I can actually find battles. I'm very competitive, so even if it's Go Battle League without any actual rewards, I try my best to climb as high as I can there, usually getting to like second place on the leaderboards. That's my typical spot on there. But yeah.
That was going to be my question. Where on the leaderboard did you end up second is really impressive. I fear for the person in first. I sense you're coming.
A threat at our in-person competition, a threat just playing from the comfort of your own home on that leaderboard. And I guess this brings us to our next point perfectly. What are your thoughts on the current meta, Emmy Weedle, especially going into this big competition of EUIC? Is it flexible, a wide meta, or do you consider it chaotic?
Oh, I consider it very chaotic. It's probably one of the most difficult metas we've had in a while. It's very like top heavy. So the strongest meta Pokemon are, the way to go. There's not much room for like flexible off meta picks that kind of beat some of the top meta mons. So team building has actually been extremely difficult for both me and lots of my friends that I've been talking to as well, actually. But we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned your friends. One of the things that I think is so exciting about Pokemon is how it brings so many people together and at such wonderful, uplifting events. I want to ask you, what has been your favorite memory related to Pokemon? Has it been something from competition or maybe even something from before?
For me, it definitely has to been last year's EUIC. Just winning with all my friends and teammates, there to support me. My family as well. It's all great, and I hope I can relive something like that. But if I don't, then that's that, and I've had a great time. So.
And hearing that big win for you in that moment was so monumental, so important to your career and experience. Are you looking forward to anything specific for this EUIC? Is it a big win, or is there something else you'd like to accomplish for this event?
To be honest, no. I'd be glad with just any type of top position at this point. It's been a rough season for me so far, but. It's hard. It's going to be hard to top last year, and if it does get better, then wow. I mean, but no, I'm just looking to have a good time mainly, and try to do my best. And I think if I don't do too well, then at least I can support the rest of my friends that are hopefully still going to be competing.
Well, you mentioned it's been a hard season and you're coming in last year's champion, so a lot of energy is going to be directed at you and what you're bringing to the competition. Is there anyone in particular that you're worried about facing, player-wise or maybe meta-wise?
There's my good friend Tomahawk UK. I've played him 3 times so far, lost all 3 times. He's very good at beating specifically me, so if there's anybody to dodge it's him for sure. But yeah, he's a great guy, so can't complain. It would be fun to face him again, of course, but yeah, one to watch out for.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, every player has their rival, certainly. Somebody who's going to give them a run for their money, and maybe it might result in some good competition for our fans at home. And I guess one final question, Emmy Weedle. What is your favorite Pokemon? Is it something inside of Go or not currently added to the game that you just enjoy in general?
No, my favorite Pokemon is just completely unrelated to Go. It's actually Wooloo. I just love, it's like a cute, fluffy ball sheep Pokemon. And since it released, I've basically instantly fallen in love with it. So that is my favorite Pokemon.
I love that. I don't think anyone's ever answered Wooloo. I'm definitely going to associate you with Wooloo from now on, Weedle. That's such a cute answer, too.
Yeah, definitely a Wooloo.
Oh, strong. It made me like Wooloo better a little bit, I think, too. Well, Weedle, thank you so much for coming on, for talking to us ahead of EUIC. We wish you the best of luck in this competition. And is there anything else you want to say? Anyone you want to shout out before we say goodbye?
Shout out to my family for getting this whole interview set up. It's been a bit difficult, but I appreciate everything they do. So shout out to them. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I'm glad there's so many people supporting you, not only behind the scenes, but as you head into this big competition. Thank you once more for taking the time to share your thoughts about this upcoming metagame, and good luck. Emmy Weedle, a player who had a bit of a rough season, but is looking for a strong top placement in EUIC, and Pokemon Go is sure to be a fantastic game to watch regardless. But this brings us into our next segment, Rachel, and we've got VG on the docket. To help us break things down and set the stage, we've got none other than Gabby. Hello there, Gabby Snyder. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty great. Rachel, I love how you grabbed your Bidoof plush for this segment. I have my crew all here cheering me on as well. And honestly, I think a lot of people going into EUIC are getting their crews together. Going back to the regional championships that we've seen recently, we've seen a lot of friend groups building together, doing incredibly well in terms of their finishes. And that's the kind of skills you're going to need, as this is our first big event back in the Regulation G format since the World Championships.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts about this regulation and the season as a whole so far.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting season, as I think we started out in Regulation H, after the World Championships, in a metagame that really rewarded creativity, really rewarded going through the Pokedex, finding Pokemon that had the specific types of moves, the specific types of, types that would really fill out your team and do well. But now that we're back in Regulation G, because we're reintroducing the restricted Pokemon, such as your Miraidons, your Koraidons, your Zamazentas, your Zacians, all those good legendary fellows that are out there, it does restrict that creativity a little bit, because at the end of the day, Miraidon does large numbers of damage, and unfortunately for people like Emmy Weedle, your Wooloos just can't stand up for that. But I think it's been really interesting to see how people have sort of taken where we left off in August after the World Championships and innovated on what we saw then, and tried out some new things in the regionals that we've had around the world since we switched back into the format back in January. And while things may feel a little bit stagnant in terms of, a Miraidon won again, Calyrex Ice Rider won, I think there's a lot of creativity going into that team building, and I'm really excited to see what people haven't shown us, because with such a big tournament just a week away, that the best Pokemon trainers are saving their big secrets for that day.
Oh, and when you talk about the best Pokemon trainers, I understand you've accomplished quite a list for us, that some players to watch, familiar regulation, but familiar champions as well.
I mean, if you want to talk about the best of the absolute best right now in terms of championship points, in terms of international championship wins, it's Marco Silva. 100% hands down. If you watched the Latin America International Championships back in November, you'll remember that he won. He defended the title for the first time in VG history, which was really exciting. He had this incredible team with Charizard, Jumpluff, and Torkoal that really took advantage of the sun and gave the team playability both outside of sun, with really speedy Charizard doing lots of big attacks, and then you also had a Trick Room mode with that Torkoal and that Porygon too. And what you may not have seen if you only watched that one tournament is that he went on to bring that team to several different regionals and did insanely well. Was runner-up in Gdansk, was runner-up in Toronto, Wolfie Con Parish, if that rings any bells to anybody out there, and just is insanely consistent in arguably a format of VGC where a lot of people struggle to find that consistency. So, looking back at the World Championships, he ran Calyrex Shadow Rider. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick that up again, as it is one of the more balancy, consistent kind of teams where you rely on how you play and you rely on your ability to control the board in order to gain the advantage to win the matches. But it's February. We'll have to see what he's been thinking.
Yeah, Marco Silva, a big name that everybody in the audience needs to keep an eye on, certainly. For our VG segment, folks, we didn't get a chance to get an interview with any of these players, but we were able to reach out and get some quotes and some of their thoughts about the upcoming competitions. We're going to take a closer look now.
Yeah, so Marco said going to an international championship after winning the last one definitely holds a lot of pressure on me. But my goal is to just play as best as I can, and hopefully I will be able to get another good result. As a message to my fans, I appreciate all y'all. Feel free to come say hi if you see me at EUIC, which is really exciting, honestly. I feel like sometimes you see these top players like Marco Silva, he's very quiet sometimes. Like, I remember seeing him backstage preparing for a couple of matches, just looking a little bit nervous. Like, I had a chance to talk to him in Toronto, and he has such a cool mind, and it's so cool to just hear how he talks about his plays and how he looks at the game. Definitely someone to take up on that offer to say hello to if you get the chance.
Yeah, I'm so glad he said it outright, because I get so shy even, I guess I don't want to bother the players. They're in their headspace, they're working. But again, we talk about going to these events, meeting people, the community, friends. Like, he is open to it, and I love to see it.
And meeting a fan in the audience probably would give him a fantastic confidence boost going onto the big stage.
If you say hi to him, give him our best.
Yeah, there's nothing like it, honestly. Having had the opportunity myself to just say hi to people, it's a great energy booster. So if we could go ahead to our next player to watch, it's kind of hard to top Marco Silva in terms of accomplishments, but I tried with our current reigning world champion, Luca Ceribelli. Luca won the World Championships with this really cool Miraidon team that we'll talk a little bit about later. But I think what's most important about that team is that people have gone on to use it time and time again to get really good results. And I think that he has a bit of a maybe a smaller resume is how I'd phrase it compared to like Marco Silva or compared to some of the other people that we're going to talk about here. But his ability to find consistency and his ability to just, be the best person in a Regulation G format is certainly something to keep an eye on. And, he also got top 8 at EUIC last year. I feel like one way to beat that would be to walk home the champion for sure. But we'll just have to see what he's cooking. And I think we also got to get a quote from him as well.
Yeah, to strike gold like that with a strong Miraidon team that other people have to replicate, I really want to hear more of his thoughts.
I just want to know what the Larvitar did.
Unfortunately, the Larvitar, we can't talk about that, but I think they're on good terms now. Don't worry. But when asked about EUIC, Luca responded, "It's a great honor for me to going to such a massive event with the important title of World Champion. Although expectations are high, I would be looking to improve on my last season's performance regardless. So I guess there is a common ground here. I just hope we all have fun." And that's another thing I love about these top trainers too, is that when you have a chance to sit down and talk to them, at the end of the day, it is the fun, it's the community that brings them back to compete. And Luca actually hasn't gone to many events so far this season, which makes sense. He was able to win his invite to the World Championships next year by winning last year. So to be able to go to a big event like EUIC with that mindset of, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to challenge myself, I'm going to see what I can accomplish here, I think means that a lot of the pressure is off. I mean, certainly you have to worry about people looking at you and being like, oh my goodness, I'm facing the reigning world champion. Like, this is going to be insane. But I think if you're able to kind of offload that mental pressure a bit, it really allows you to shine.
Having the ability to go to a big tournament and just want to enjoy the experience. A lot of these top players, the ones I've spoken with, certainly in VG, they just enjoy a good game, even if they lose.
Yeah.
They are so impressed by each other's performances as competitors. And, oh, that team build was so inventive. You had a crazy read here. I got completely outplayed. They're so humble in defeat, but also excited for that next echelon of competition.
Oh, yeah, and he's got to go out there riding that legend of a world champion. That's going to give him a little extra aura going into these head-to-heads, so good luck, Luca.
For sure. And our final player to watch from the EU region, at least, is Victor Mendina, who also has an incredible history of doing well at international championships. Most notably was the finalist at LAIC this past year, faced off against Marco Silva in that rain versus sun battle. Still sort of looking for that breakthrough performance at an IC, though. I don't think he's necessarily, certainly hasn't won one yet, doesn't necessarily have a real, first place title title to his name just yet. But I think this could be a great opportunity for him to find that. You know, we've been sitting with the Regulation G metagame since August. I think that's a lot of time to sort of think about what you liked about your approach the last time around, what you didn't like. It's worth noting that Victor's last team that he ran at the World Championships in Reg G was a Calyrex Ice Rider team with Cornerstone Ogrepon and Farigiraf, which has been very popular as of late. And, you know, go back to that, figure out what your matchups that you didn't like, and build, you know, cook, as some people say. And I'm looking forward to see what he has in store, because I think that he's definitely someone on my list of players that I would love to see grab that championship title, as he has been so close so many times.
Yeah, it is a rare opportunity for our competitors to go back and revisit a past metagame, maybe make up for some of their mistakes or push the innovation of a team build just that one extra step forward it might have needed.
Absolutely, and that's a great list of trainers from EU to keep an eye out for, but Gabby, your reach is global, as I understand it.
It is, but before we get there, I do want to take a moment to pass Victor's words along.
Thank you. Oh, I wouldn't want to miss them. Thank you.
Of course. I'm always excited when a big event like EUIC is coming up. The level of competition will be fierce, but that just makes it more thrilling. I'm looking forward to competing and pushing myself to improve at this event. To my opponents, let's have some great battles and make this the best EUIC yet. Best of luck to everyone competing. And, you know, I think regardless of what happens, honestly, I love that he calls out that he wants to make this the best EUIC yet, because I think that VGC has had so much growth over the years. You know, every year it feels like we're setting attendance records. Every year we're seeing, you know, both these newer trainers, these older trainers make a name for themselves in VGC. So I think it's going to be the best EUIC yet, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, especially with the help of our viewers at home, tuning in now to kind of catch up on the metagame and the players, but also showing up on the day of the broadcast and really giving their voices to the Twitch chat and bringing that hype.
And I'm so glad we got these quotes. They're all like protagonist level, like hero quote. They're so easy to root for, all of these players. It's a tough choice to pick just one.
But we've got even more choices to make, and Gabby has more players for us to take a look at.
For the record, you don't have to pick one person just yet. But if I had to pick one person from the North America region to mention for this broadcast, at least, I picked Justin Tang, who is coming off of the win in San Antonio regionals here in the United States. Him and his building partner, Shi Liang Tang, built this absolutely incredible Calyrex Ice Rider team that I will talk about later. But what was really special about this team in this event was that it was the first time, I think, ever in VGC history, barring like 2018, I think was maybe the last time it happened, where two friends built a team together, ended up on opposite sides of the bracket, and then were able to face each other in the finals in a perfect mirror. Marcus Dion and Carson Comfer got pretty close at a previous regional this year, but they ultimately ended up, I believe, in top 4 and not finals. But it just goes to show his ability to understand and play the game at such a high level, and the strength of his community around him supporting those performances. And, you know, the other thing I like to talk about with Justin Tang in particular is that he's one of the newer players on the block. He came into the scene back in 2023, was able to win the Knoxville Regional Championships, and then went on to win some more regional championships, and has really found his spot in the VGC Legends, the Hall of Legends, if you will, in just a couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to see how he's going to approach EUIC coming off of San Antonio. I'm curious if he's going to run like a similar team, if him and his building group is going to mix things up. Definitely someone to keep an eye on.
With such a meteoric career, you should watch out for Rayquaza. I'll see myself out, guys.
I know, you go, but you stay.
Okay, but it's my mistake. Sorry, Gabby.
I mean, I can take care of the Bidoof, don't worry. And while we figure that whole arrangement out, we have another trainer to watch from the Latin America regional, Juan Salerno. And what's really cool about Juan is that he also is coming off of the most recent regional win in the Latin America region, or well, actually second most recent because we just had Merida the previous week. But he was able to win Rio de Janeiro, lock in his Worlds invite. He is the leader in championship points, I believe, in LATAM currently. And as a result, is really coming into this tournament with just, the ability to play, see how it goes, earn those championship points, hopefully put himself in a good position for a travel award to NAIC, potentially even the World Championships. And he's also a bit of a newer player. I think that he's someone that's come up on our broadcasts a few times, as I think we've been able to sort of see that he's been running some really good teams. The way that he approaches the game is really interesting to watch. Hasn't really had a breakthrough performance at the international level yet. Is just coming off of a couple top 32s. Was 33rd at LAIC earlier on in the year. But I think this is going to be a good tournament for him. Certainly has the momentum behind him after winning Rio.
I like it. A player prediction. We've gotten a lot of meta predictions, some team predictions, but I like that, Gabby. We'll be keeping an eye on him just for you.
I try. And then last but not least, I think we should head over to the Oceania region and talk about Diego Ferreira, who got top 8 at Worlds this year, in addition to some pretty good placements at the regionals down in Australia. And what was really cool about his top 8 finish at Worlds was that he was one of 2 trainers who really committed to running Calyrex Ice Rider in a way that focused on Trick Room, focused on that speed control. And I think that unique approach to the game allowed him to excel when not a lot of people were anticipating that kind of team coming into the format. The one downside about the Oceania region is that they don't have as many events that we can necessarily follow. I believe they only have a handful of regionals and they're not streamed at this point in time. So it's tough to say what he's been thinking coming into EUIC, but just looking at his play style for previous tournaments, looking at how he's done over the season, I would be very surprised if he didn't run a similar team to his top 8 Worlds team at EUIC, and is probably trying to fish for a really strong finish to lock in his opportunity to travel to NAIC and Worlds, similar to Juan.
Yeah, that is interesting to hear, especially that Ice Rider is making such a big appearance across so many different teams, but also employed in different ways. It's not just this Pokemon is doing the same thing over and over again, each trainer being able to put their own spin on these compositions.
Yeah, and that's really the heart of Regulation G at the end of the day, and I would love to talk about that. But before I do, similar to what we had at the LAIC pre-show, we actually have a lot of Japanese players coming to EUIC to compete, and I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that Shohei Kimura, our 2023 world champion, is going to be competing there. He is an absolutely insane battler. His finals match against Mikhail Kelsch was just an absolute masterclass of identifying trainers' weaknesses on the team sheet and identifying if I play with these Pokemon, if I move in this way, then I will be able to guarantee my win. Definitely worth going back to watch if you haven't seen it, even though the metagame was very different to what we're going to be seeing in Regulation G, mind you. But it was still just a really fun Worlds Finals, and I'm so happy that these Japanese players get to come out and compete. Joe was talking earlier about how in the TCG scene, a lot of them have been coming to compete at regionals. And while we haven't seen as much of that, at least on the VG side of things, I'm hoping that, as the year winds down, as these Japanese players maybe lock in their Japan Nats invites or not, we'll start to see more of them venture out and compete on a global scale.
To have them show their spin on the metagame is so important, especially in the hands of international competition, to say, oh, I never even thought about this before, or as you said, his kind of signature of being able to outmaneuver opponents. We'll see how that plays an angle into the metagame. It might not just be about, having a strong restricted Pokemon on the team. You've got to make sure it's in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, we're mixing now a lot of the regional metas, and Gabby, I don't want to cut you off because I'm sure you've got a lot to say about that.
I mean, by all means, I was just going to transition into these power rankings. I have a lot I want to say, and I just want to make sure I can say it all before y'all, cut me off.
No, you got
Oh, yeah,
the most
please
important info
break
packet we
it down
would
for
lay out.
us and the viewers at home.
This is all you, man.
All right, so I was struggling a bit. I was trying to come up with a wheel like Will put together for Pokemon Go, and it didn't really come together all the way. And I think the best way to represent Regulation G at this point in time is a power ranking to talk about the 3 most popular and or strongest restricted Pokemon in the metagame, how people are approaching these Pokemon. So that way, when you go ahead and watch the stream next weekend, you can see how the innovation is coming through. So, of course, we start with Miraidon. It is arguably the largest damage dealing Pokemon out there in Regulation G, possibly even in Scarlet and Violet altogether. And you can see these different takes on how players have chose to support Miraidon. When you're running such a powerful attacker as your restricted Pokemon, you really want to use the other 5 Pokemon on your team to open up opportunities for it to go for that big damage. You don't want to necessarily waste turns protecting or just be outsped and then knocked out in one hit, because if you can't do damage, then your opponent eventually does more damage, and that's just the game of Pokemon. So for Lucas Ceribelli's team, which won Worlds, you can see the support of the Whimsicott, which had some speed control. It had Light Screen to help with defenses. You had the Iron Hands, which has great synergy with the electric terrain to get like an attack boost, and then you can go for Fake Out and some really big, bulky fighting type damage. You have Farigiraf as well, which can help against those Trick Room teams. So just really the goal of that style of team is that Miraidon is the star and these other Pokemon are there to support it. And since the World Championships, what we've seen from Pokemon like Miraidon are these more I don't want to say balanced approach, because I think a team like Daniel Nunez's team, which won the Merida Regional Championships last weekend, it isn't really balanced at all when you look at it on paper. It takes advantage of the fact that Dondozo and Tatsugiri have great natural synergy with each other, and are a combination that a lot of trainers aren't prepared for on paper. So if you can find a way to eliminate the counters to those 2 Pokemon using other strong attackers like Golden Go, like Dragonite, you have this end game where Dondozo and Tatsugiri take center stage. And then finally for Miraidon, one other approach that I've been seeing gain a lot of popularity, which I really like, is accepting that, okay, Miraidon's the best restricted Pokemon. I'm expecting to run into a lot of restricted Miraidons. Why don't I just run my team in a way that I can handle the mirror matchup, the Miraidon versus Miraidon, really well? So you have, this Whimsicott, Incineroar to sort of support these Pokemon, but then you have Iron Crown, which Terra grounds, so it doesn't take electric type damage, and then you also have Ursaluna, which is a ground type Pokemon, to round things out and just make sure that if you do end up playing 8 Miraidon in day 1 of the competition, you win that 9 times out of 10.
Very impressive approach to expect that your pick is truly the best one and then taking it to that next logical step.
For sure. So the next Pokemon on these power rankings, and this is where my personal bias comes through, is going to be the Calyrex Ice Rider. I think it's the superior Calyrex compared to Shadow Rider, which is its ghost type variant. And we've seen a lot of really cool versions of this team. If you watch the San Antonio Regionals, we have Justin Tang and Shiliang Tang, these friends who team build together, their take on it, where it's actually a very fast Calyrex Shadow Rider. You're not using Trick Room. You're instead setting up Tailwind with that Roaring Moon, and then you're bringing these fast attackers alongside of it, so it's able to outspeed, get those KOs, activate its Chilling Neigh ability, get those attack boosts, and get the ball rolling, so to speak, which is, again, something we just had not seen from Calyrex Ice Rider teams until the San Antonio Regional Championships. But, that's not the only way to run this Pokemon, and Juan Salerno, when he won the Rio de Janeiro Regional Championships, he ran what I would call a more balanced take on Calyrex Ice Rider, where you have the option to Trick Room, you have the Amoonguss and the Incineroar sort of rounding out that core, but then you also have these somewhat faster attackers like the Urshifu, like the Landorus Incarnate, or a Raging Bolt with its priority attack to deal damage and make it so you can respond more to the board state rather than just, always go fast or always go Trick Room. But you can also always go Trick Room. And I want to give a quick shout out to William Brown. I'm trying to talk as fast as I can because he was able to get top 8 and top 16 at back-to-back regionals with the same team of 6. And this is very much a Trick Room team where you have this like size spam mode with the Indeedee and the Iron Crown, but then you have Decorate, Smeargle, and Ursaluna to slow the game down and just really say, I'm going to either, go size spam and be super fast and deal big damage that way, or I'm going to Trick Room. I'm going to boost my stats up with Decorate. You can really get a lot of different flavors of Calyrex Ice Rider, and I think that all these flavors are capable of doing well at EUIC. It's really just where the meta goes from here.
Mm-hmm. And I love the ability to double down on each of Calyrex's ideas of I can play fast, I can play slow, and I can do something a little bit in between.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's why it's my personal favorite. I don't necessarily like to run a team where your opponent looks at your team sheet and they're like, oh, Gabby's going to do this turn 1 and then she's going to do this turn 1, and they can either handle it or they can't. I like to be able to feel out how my opponent's going to approach the game. I like to be able to say, oh, well, my Calyrex is slower than theirs, so maybe I'll do this game too. And I think it's really that adaptability and that flexibility that allows these types of teams to do well at international championships or at the world championships. So if you are seeing a lot of the same restricted Pokemon, please just take a moment to look at the way that trainers are supporting that Pokemon, how they're highlighting it, how they're using it in their battles, because I guarantee you, even though things may look the same on paper, there's just so many nuanced takes that you can get when you have a format like Regulation G. It's so fascinating to watch.
Mm-hmm. And how does this Ice Rider pick contrast with your next power ranking pick?
So this is where it gets spicy. I was really struggling to pick my third restricted Pokemon I wanted to highlight. And there was a about 200-person online tournament last weekend where Terapagos actually won. It was in two out of the 4 top 4 spots. And I was thinking about it. And what's really interesting about Terapagos is that I think it has a very unique opportunity where it does really well into these more consistent teams that trainers like to bring to international championships, to world championships, where there is more money, there's more prizing, there's more championship points, travel awards on the line. And I want to start out by talking about Ismail Hussein's Terapagos team, because these 6 Pokemon have just really just popped up over the past week or so and has resulted in a really unique team. Now, the one thing about Terapagos you have to be mindful of is that while it has some really amazing bulk, it really struggles when you get paired up against Pokemon like Zamazenta and Koraidon. But if you're able to run Terapagos with a partner like Heatran, which is a Pokemon that we haven't seen in VGC in a hot minute, let me tell you, you're actually able to set it up so that your opponent just has nothing they can do against the Heatran. So the way that you pilot a team like this is that this Heatran has Terra Fairy or Terra Bug. So you all of a sudden you resist those fighting type attacks. You can trap Pokemon on the field with Magma Storm, which is a attack that's, I believe, Heatran's signature move. And then on top of all that, you pair it with a Pokemon like Screamtail, which is very fast. It has Encore and Disable. And all of a sudden, you're running this like control game where you're basically shutting down what your opponent can and cannot do. You're finding Terapagos opportunities to go for Calm Minds, to go for Substitute. And then it's just on the field for such a long period of time. It can do insane damage. It's a really cool team building like tech to put into a team. Heatran, again, haven't seen it in a hot minute. So the fact that Ismail was able to identify it and put it in this team and have it do so well, maybe not in San Antonio, but once people got their hands on it and refined it, is really cool. So I want to give a shout out to them with coming up with this idea. But that all being said, you know, Terapagos historically has had a couple of other ways you can run it. Wang Yuxiang at the World Championships got top 8 with a similar team where it was was also Leftovers Calm Mind, and you want to try and slow things down so Terapagos can set up. But instead of the Screamtail and the Heatran, you had the Urshifu and the Chien-Pao, just more traditional, like damage dealers, Fluttermane as well, able to respond to how your opponent plays the game, and then, weave in those opportunities for Terapagos. And then you also had Aurelion Sola, who was our finalist at NAIC last year, who didn't run a bulky Terapagos. It was choice specs, and it just did such an amazing job of putting damage down on the board, putting a lot of pressure on opponents. And the only reason that Aurelion didn't win NAIC was just how, the game was played at that point in time. The team was very strong, and I think that if you're coming into an IC and that was your best performance and you were really comfortable with that kind of hyper offense play, I think that Terapagos is a really unique Pokemon to consider for that.
I think that Terapagos, compared especially to your other power rankings picks, is kind of the herald of innovation for this regulation. And, hyper offense is a bold call in any format.
It really is. And I think that there are other hyper offense teams out there. Of course, Calyrex Shadow Rider is known to be able to be played in that way. We've seen some really cool Kyogre teams pop up, especially where I'm from recently, where you have Tailwind support, you go for Water Spout, and it just does an insane amount of damage. Zamazenta is still around, being able to catch people off guard with like how much damage a Behemoth Blade does can be huge. There's so many different ways you can play these restricted Pokemon. Again, if I could impart one thing onto the viewers at home, it's to pay attention to these little details when you're watching EUIC next week, because it's going to show you just how people approach the game, and it's so fascinating to see.
Yeah, when you're tuning in to EUIC for your educational content, to learn these teams, to see all of Gabby's prophetic declarations here come true, we also are going to be rewarding you with these Twitch drops. Make sure that you get these rewards as well as a viewer. It's going to be super important and great for anybody who wants to build a strong team. We've got Marco Silva's LAIC winning Jumpluff for our viewers to pick up and add to their roster.
Jumpluff having a moment this episode.
It really is. And what's awesome is that Jumpluff is still relevant in VGC and Regulation G. There's a team going around with Groudon, so you still have that Sun support, and you just play it really similar to how Marco played it at LAIC. So if you're looking for an idea and you just want like a battle-ready Pokemon, seems like you can just, knock out 2 Pokemon with 1 hit. Easy.
Well said, Gabby, and incredible insights across the board. We're going to ask you to apply them once again because we have a question from social for you. This one coming from KDan7. Is Spore on Amoonguss mandatory? No Spore max damage Amoonguss is looking real enticing right now. Thoughts?
So my thought is that if you are comfortable with running no Spore Amoonguss, then you live your best life. I personally think that Spore can be so disruptive. Going back to the 2023 World Championships, the way that Shohei won that game essentially was realizing that there was no answer for Spore, and he just kept using Spore and he kept winning. So if you're comfortable making that call, I think you can really catch your opponents off guard, and I think that can give you a lot of unique playability, especially in, let's say, a closed team sheet format, like some of the global challenges that we have happening online throughout the year. But I also think that having Spore for the disruptive ability, being able to force your opponent to do nothing on a Pokemon for a couple of turns can be really helpful, and it's more aligned with my personal playstyle to keep it. But again, there's no harm in trying these things out. I mean, maybe you don't want to go to a regional, head to a local. Challenge some of your friends to a battle with your No Spore Amoonguss and let us know how it goes. I'm genuinely curious. I think it does great damage. I'd love to see how you'd support it.
Yeah, keep us posted, Kaden. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for coming on, for sharing all this analysis, and as always, a real treat to see inside your head on these competitive Pokemon calls in VG. We got to hear a lot from you. Is there anything else we missed? Any final thoughts you'd like to share with us?
My dog Cheese wanted me to say that he's sorry he couldn't be here today, but he thinks Zamazenta's gonna win, or Zacian. They're all good boys.
The good boys rising up. I definitely respect it. Zamazenta, No Spore Amoonguss, the team. We're sprinkling the breadcrumbs here for you, chat. The team that is going to win is being hinted at as we speak. But speaking of That is going to conclude our VG segment, and now we can welcome back the rest of our experts and panelists to bring it all home. Welcome back, everybody. And let me see, what do we have first on the list? We've got some questions from social. We're going to go around and get some final thoughts from everybody and see what each game has to offer. This one comes from One Hit KO. Of the most common picks for your game, which do you think is the easiest for a new trainer to get to grips with?
I like that one.
I'll kick things off for Unite. I think if you are new to Unite, you're trying to look for a Pokemon, I usually recommend the Defender role. It's really good to learn how the game kind of works. It focuses on positioning and how to use your abilities, so I think is great, and Blastoise is a really cool option. So that's my suggestion.
For the TCG, I would be suggesting Archaludon. I think it's a really low maintenance deck in the game right now, reliant on just really one main attacker that has crazy stats, to be honest with you, so that can carry you in a number of games. The main nuance is discarding your energy to utilize your own ability, and then selecting the best supporter on any given turn, but there's not too many actions required, and its own stat line is one of the main selling points of the deck, so that's a really easy one to pick up right now, I think.
And for Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I was gonna pass the buck to you.
Oh, perfect. For Pokemon Go, I have to say that Drapion is probably the most accessible Pokemon right now. It's got a 2-turn fast attack in Poison Sting that does a little bit of damage but generates a lot of energy. It's got Aqua Tail and Crunch as its primary charge attacks that we've seen in the competitive circuit, but you also have the option to run things like Fell Stinger or Sludge Bomb, so there's a lot of versatility. And plus, it's a Dark and Poison type, so it only has one key weakness, and that is Ground. So if you want a very flexible Pokemon that you can lead, safe switch, even close with, I think that Drapion is the one.
And Gabby.
And I think if you're looking to pick up VG right now, I really love Lucas Arabelli's World's winning team. Having the Miraidon be able to deal so much damage just means that there's one less thing you have to worry about in terms of what's on the board, because you just pick up a KO and then there's only one Pokemon there. Being able to sort of learn how to support your main attacker is a very key concept for restricted formats, and I think being able to pick the biggest damage dealing attacker as a place to start is the best place to start.
Solid advice once again from Gabby. Let's move on to our next question from social, also from One Hit KO. What Pokemon would you consider the mascot of your game's championships across its entire history? So think back, and Zoinks, start us off.
I love this question, first of all. Shout out Katie. I think it's a really interesting question. With Pokemon Unite, I feel, I've had this conversation a few times, I think it would be Hoopa. It's an awesome support Pokemon that's never really gone out of style ever since its inclusion to the game. Plus, aesthetically, Hoopa's got this whole rings mechanic that look very similar to the goal zones that are very important of the Unite battlefield, so it just kind of clicks together.
Wow, an aesthetic answer and like a meta answer. Love it.
As for the trading card game, I think I have to stand with Gardevoir, to be honest with you. Throughout its history, since the Diamond and Pearl, well, since the Ruby and Sapphire era, it was even very powerful back then. But Diamond and Pearl, it really became the best deck, probably of all time. I think most players would say that Gardevoir Gallade in the Diamond and Pearl era, around that 2008 sort of time zone, was just the best deck. But it didn't stop there. It's had an incredible Mega EX, actually 2 of them. One was very interesting with dual type coverage, which made it really unique. It's also been a world champion since that 2008, where the GX came out and Gardevoir was once again extremely powerful, now as a fairy type Pokemon. It had a great tag team GX alongside Sylveon, and even now in the current era, there's a Gardevoir EX, and it's going to be dominating probably the EUIC as well. So it's continuing to be powerful time and time again. It's already been in 4 finals of Worlds, and it could do so again this season.
How about for you, Will?
Pokemon Go is a very, very fun game. We have a lot of cute Pokemon that are a little bit maybe underutilized in other titles, but if there's one Pokemon that really stands out, it's got to be Azumarill. Azumarill is our mascot. Guys, I'm going to put you in a time capsule for just a moment. If you go back to 2022, the first ever Play Pokemon Championship Series event for Pokemon Go was EUIC, and the runner-up had Azumarill on their team. And then you fast forward to 2025, and in this very season, Azumarill has won 15 out of the 18 Championship Series events on the competitive circuit, including the last 11 straight. So if you're looking for a very, very efficient Pokemon when everything is so dynamic and the meta is always changing and there seems to be very few constants, Azumarill for Pokemon Go is that constant.
Solid. Gabby?
For VG, a lot of people in chat are probably like, it's Incineroar, right, guys? It's Incineroar? Wrong. And here's why. Incineroar was Gen 6. What came out one generation before? Thundurus, Landorus, and Tornadus. And let me tell you, when those Pokemon are allowed in the format, it might not be the same one, but one of those three Pokemon has always done insanely well throughout the years. So I really do think that there was something about these Pokemon in Generation 5 that have just defined VGC for the past few years. And yes, Incineroar is also there, but I really do think it is these genies that take home the crown.
Yeah, a very good deep cut there. Kind of picking some of the less obvious Pokemon that maybe don't get the recognition that they deserve, and moving on to our next question from social media, though, as we prepare for Europe, London here, Jeremy Jallin asks, full English breakfast, goat or nope? Full English breakfast, Zoinks, what do you think about it?
Listen, I'm going to say goat, but mostly just towards the breakfast in general. I'm not super picky, so full English breakfast, I'm down, but you could really put any word in there to substitute for English, and that would be absolutely goat.
Wow, I'm already buzzing because I thought I was going to be the only one going to bat for this, to be honest with you. So I think this is already a win. But yeah, I really like full English. I think it can set you up for the day nicely. It's got meat, it's got eggs, it's got some carbs in there as well. It's got chopped tomatoes, everything. It sets you up perfectly for the day. Not something you can have every morning, certainly, but as a real treat, the full English is perfect, and I recommend it if you're heading to London.
All right, Will, full English breakfast?
I'm going to have to be contrarian here. I'm going to have to say nope. Eggs Benedict do have a very special place in my heart, but that's not even an English breakfast. If we're talking about the full English breakfast, I'm going to say it's just not my favorite. I'm sorry.
A little bit too much going on for you.
It's way too much for me. I mean, my breakfast is like coffee and maybe a pastry of some sort if I'm feeling it. Now, if you said a full English Sunday roast, I would definitely be there. That's the real goat right there.
When you're going to London or just honestly any country in Europe, you've got to try the local cuisine. But breakfast is where you need to start every single day, no matter what.
Breakfast might be how you start your day, but it's the hot takes that keep us going. So, folks, I have to pass it around and get the hottest, the spiciest, the most caliente takes that you've got heading into EUIC. Zoinks, I know you got one cooking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one that I actually believe in. We'll go with this one. I'm going to say that EUIC is going to be an all-EU grand final. Sunday is going to be 2 EU teams to make it through the bracket, one of the most stacked brackets I've ever seen, and I'm going to add one caveat onto it, or just an addition. We will finally have a bracket reset. Not bracket reset, I guess a full Game 5 set in our game. Our grand finals tend to be 3-0 sweeps. We have amazing matches all the way through day 1 and day 2, and then always our grand finals is very lopsided. This is going to break the mold.
That's esports, baby. But I believe with you. I want to see it go the distance.
TCG hot take.
Yeah, last time I've got a bit of pressure actually, because for the Worlds pre-show I predicted Ironthorn's EX to win, which I thought was pretty bold at the time, but that one actually came true. So I'm going to try and stick with the theme of choosing a deck to do well. And I think Charizard Pidgeot, that one's gone. Everyone's accepted that that's falling by the wayside, but that doesn't mean that Charizard itself cannot continue to rise from the ashes and we can rebirth a new archetype. And I think Charizard Dragapult is the sneaky play for the European International Championships. Combining two very strong cards together has been a historically very good way to succeed in TCG. It's only really murmurings of the deck right now. We haven't seen much of it in IRL play, but I think this has the potential to be a powerhouse archetype in the new format. So that's going to be the archetype that I'm touting to possibly win the EUIC.
Very interesting.
Wow.
It'd be exciting if that comes true. Well, what you got for us?
Wow, I'm actually going to piggyback off of Joe's point there. The European center of play has just been so dynamic and so innovative. They don't like to play with the typical tools that NA, LATAM, and Oceania like to use. For example, last season, Shadow Charizard won at LA, or excuse me, 2 seasons ago, Shadow Charizard won at EUIC. We've had a tournament victory this season with Alolan Raticate, of all things. There Chestnut, Shadow Drifblim. You could toss out B-Barrel again. Shout out to Gabby. There have been so many wild picks. I really believe that these core breakers are going to turn into heartbreakers this season and actually win in EUIC.
Okay, trying to overturn the metagame for your hot take, but for VG, what could possibly be left to say after you broke it down so thoroughly, Gabby?
I mean, honestly, Will already stole my thunder. I can't predict Bidoof is going to win VG as much as I'd love to. I just can't. But I do think that we're going to have a bit of an underdog story coming through at EUIC this year. You know, I think one thing I love about VG is that every season we get to see new trainers sort of find their moment, find their momentum, and then do insanely well and win these titles. And I really, really want to manifest that for EUIC. I want to have the finals be like your seasoned veteran versus the newcomer, and I will be front row for that because I cannot wait to see it.
Very bold call, and I love the entertainment value built into that thought as well, that hot take. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. And we're going to go around one more time very quickly to get our final thoughts that you might have for our audience and our viewers at home.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's so fun to discuss with my other panelists and everything what competitive Pokemon action we're going to see at EUIC. Final thoughts, when it comes to Unite, it is truly one of the most exciting tournaments in these mid-season events. There's a lot of teams with a lot of dreams still, you know, think they can take on the whole world, and it's where we get to see them all clash. So EUIC, always a banger, and I know this one's going to continue that.
For the TCG side, I just want to remind people that there's so much more going on than the main event. There's going to be lots of side events going on, lots of trading going on, lots of collectors out there. It's a real celebration of Pokemon. So even if you're just going to come around for the day and wander around the tables, see what it's like at the UIC, definitely come along. It's going to be a fantastic time for all. Lots of people sharing the same hobby and love of the game. So it's going to be fantastic.
I think that each international championship kind of has its own mantra. LAIC is known for the crowds. The North America Internationals are known for being the final tournament before Worlds, kind of getting temperature check going into the final competition of the season. But EUIC is the most innovative tournament of the season. Like Zoink said, we're in the middle part of our path to the World Championships. I really feel like this is going to be the most innovative tournament all season in terms of teams and play style, so you don't want to miss it. It's going to be cold, maybe a little rainy in London in February, but there are going to be fireworks inside that venue.
And to wrap it all up, honestly, the one thing I love about VG is the community. So if you are at EUIC next week and you want to enter a side event, you want to hang out at the activities stage, there's a cosplay showcase, there's artist interviews that are going on. There's so much happening. So, you know, make a friend, talk to somebody, say hello, ask them who their favorite Pokemon is. I guarantee you will make an amazing friend if you ask somebody that question. I literally did that once, and then she was one of my bridesmaids. So, like, done. Easy. Just remember to have fun, enjoy the competition, and love Pokemon.
Fantastic answers, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to come on, share your insights, your predictions, and your hottest takes with us. And we wish you all the best as we head into EUIC next week. It's going to be full of exciting competition, all the more so thanks to the fact that we're informed by y'all. So see you all later, and thank you so much once again.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Now, Adam, we talked about how great it is, the energy, the atmosphere at these events, but we also have to talk about how great it is to be a viewer of these events from the comfort of your own home, because we do a really good job here at taking care of y'all. And let's take a look one more time at the Twitch drops and the distributions that will be available throughout the event. Some big pickups there, no matter what you're looking to compete in.
Yeah, especially if you're a Jump fan. So make sure you tune in, make sure you have your account properly linked to get these rewards for any of the Pokemon pillars that you are participating in. And regardless of that, don't get caught off guard by the start time. Go ahead and screenshot this, lock it into your calendars right now. don't let that time zone trick you. Catch the broadcast, catch it right from the very beginning, and we're going to see you there in the audience. I can't wait.
Yeah, we have a new broadcast hub for those watching at home. You can head to championships with an S, it's plural, championships.pokemon.com. That's where all the competition, all the broadcasts are going to live. So don't forget, open up multiple tabs, kick back, enjoy your weekend of games. I know I'll be doing that and just that much more thanks to everything that we covered here today. And thanks to the fact that I covered it with you, Adam. What a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to break down the competition with all of our panelists and you as well, Rachel. And one more shout out to our audience at home and our production crew. We're going to see you at EUIC, so yeah, stay tuned.
And stay safe. Bye, everybody. See you there.